Chapter 135. When they entered the house, the temperature rose a lot. Hee-Wonjwa's house didn't have an electric heater like Poplar Fruit's, but it seemed that the decoration of the house made the insulation function good. There was no cold wind sneaking in through the window cracks, and the room temperature in the house was maintained at 12 or 20 degrees. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to let Kiki take off her outer cotton-padded jacket like at home. Poplar Fruit only untied the small quilt and removed the straps so that Kiki could stretch her hands and feet. Kiki, who was wearing a cute black and white cow onesie, attracted Ji Xiaoyan's attention. She wanted to tease Kiki, but then she remembered that she was still covered in mud and grass. "You go and tidy up first." Hee-Wonjwa patted Ji Xiaoyan's back and laughed heartily. Sister-in-law went to the bathroom at the back, and Poplar Fruit was led by Hee-Wonjwa to visit the house. Compared to the luxurious appearance of the house outside, the decoration and display of the furniture in the house were relatively simple. In the living room, there was a square table in the middle, 2 armchairs on both sides, and the coffee table and sofa next to it were all made of pure wood. There wasn't even a cushion on the sofa. There were 2 floors. The first floor was the living room, kitchen, bathroom, and a spacious and bright study. The area was very large, but there was no bedroom. The second floor was all bedrooms. 1 main bedroom and 4 main bedrooms. The area of each bedroom was not small. Such a design was actually quite unreasonable for a modern house. However, if the owner of the house needed to meet important guests often, then the design of the first floor could highlight his temperament. When visiting the study, Poplar Fruit finally understood what Hee-Wonjwa meant when he said at the door, "The country assigned this to my father." "This, Mr. Hee Jioming, is your father?" Poplar Fruit pointed to the words, "Iron Blood Loyal Heart," mounted on the top of the study, and the name Hee Jioming was signed below. Many people might not be familiar with Hee Jioming, and there were not many news reports about him. Poplar Fruit had only seen him in a newspaper, but that did not prevent him from remembering that Hee Jioming was a high-ranking member of the Standing Committee of the Provincial Party Committee. "These are purely fictional," Hee-Wonjwa smiled and said. "You already know before I tell you?" "Yes, he is my father." That made sense. To be able to be allocated such a good house. However, Hee-Wonjwa patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder, looked into his eyes and said solemnly, "My father is my father and I am me. I earned all the merits by risking my life. I didn't tell you before, because I don't want you to misunderstand." Hee-Wonjwa also took off his long-sleeved shirt, revealing his scars. Poplar Fruit saw several scars on his strong muscles, as well as a few round scars. "These are all bullet bites," Hee-Wonjwa pointed to a scar on his chest and said. 3 years ago I was shot here. It was less than a centimeter away from my heart, and it almost took me away." Poplar Fruit turned around and saw Ji Xiaoyan standing at the door with tears in her eyes. Hee-Wonjwa also saw her. He quickly put on his shirt, walked to his wife, put his arm around her shoulder and said, "It's okay, it's okay. It's all in the past." "Then why are you bragging so much?" Ji Xiaoyan patted his chest hard. She was less than 1.65 meters, and Hee-Wonjwa was more than 1.9 meters, a little taller than Poplar Fruit. When the two of them stood together, it was like a beauty and a beast. Ji Xiaoyan could barely reach Hee-Wonjwa's chest. Okay. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have said it." Hee-Wonjwa didn't have his usual valiant spirit. He was like an ordinary man who had made a mistake, saying good things to his wife and begging for forgiveness. Back in the living room, Poplar Fruit was quick-witted. He hugged Kiki to his chest, waved Kiki's little hand, and whispered in her ear, "Kiki, call Auntie Auntie." Kiki had learned this word before. Zheng Yujia had forced Poplar Fruit to teach Kiki over the phone. She had said it many times. Hearing her father's instructions, Kiki looked at Ji Xiaoyan. Her eyes rolled, and she said crisply, "Hey Auntie 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 hee." Her pronunciation became clearer and clearer, and she even opened her mouth and smiled proudly. Ji Xiaoyan was stunned for a moment. Her tears turned into laughter. She reached out and took Kiki. Kiki was in her arms. Her hat fell off, and she put it on Kiki. "Baby, you're so good, so smart." Ji Xiaoyan's face rubbed against Kiki's little face, and she praised her. Kiki felt that the person in front of her was praising her. Flowers bloomed in her heart. She beamed, and her 2 white front teeth were exposed. In order to whiten his daughter's teeth, Poplar Fruit had put in a lot of effort. At night, after Kiki fell asleep, he would use a small cotton swab dipped in water for Kiki to brush her teeth. Every time after drinking milk or eating, Poplar Fruit would feed Kiki some warm water to rinse her mouth. Poplar Fruit, how old is the baby? Ji Xiaoyan asked lovingly. Kiki was born at the end of April this year. She's 8 months old now. Poplar Fruit smiled. 8 months. Ji Xiaoyan asked in surprise. Kiki? Kiki is really smart. She's so pretty, look at her big eyes and small nose bridge. She must have inherited all the good points from you and your wife. Oh right, Poplar Fruit. Why didn't you bring your wife over to play today? He Wenjua, who was sitting next to them and didn't talk much, awkwardly pulled Ji Xiaoyan's hand. What's wrong? Ji Xiaoyan asked, puzzled. He Wenjua looked at Poplar Fruit, wanting to say something, but stopped. It's okay. Poplar Fruit smiled and said. Kiki's mother passed away when she gave birth to her. Ji Xiaoyan didn't know how many times she had been surprised today. She covered her mouth and said regretfully, Oh, I'm really sorry. I mentioned something that hurt you. It's really nothing. Poplar Fruit smiled. It's all in the past. Don't worry too much about it. Although He Wenjua looked like a burly man, his mind was still very meticulous. He laughed and started to change the topic. Yanzi, take a guess. What does this brother of mine do? Don't you think he looks a little familiar? What does he do? Ji Xiaoyan asked doubtfully. He looks a little familiar. Is he a celebrity? No. Poplar Fruit smiled and shook his head. He knew that He Wenjua had seen his report on Tung Sun's news, but Ji Xiaoyan probably didn't hear him mention it. He Wenjua said, Actually, I showed it to you, but I didn't specifically say it was Poplar Fruit. Oh. Ji Xiaoyan finally remembered such an obvious hint. That translator. I remember now. Tung Sun's one-day program. I was wondering why you showed me the news out of the blue that day. Ji Xiaoyan pushed him angrily. He Wenjua exaggeratedly fell on the sofa with his limbs in the air. Ji Xiaoyan quickly avoided him and smiled. Put away your fast legs. Don't tease the child. As the conversation went deeper, Poplar Fruit found out that Ji Xiaoyan was a primary school teacher. No wonder her personality was so gentle and demure. And she was so patient when she hugged Kiki. Although it was the winter solstice, school still went on as usual. Ji Xiaoyan didn't have class today, but He Wenjua and her child were still in school, so Ji Xiaoyan sat for a while and drove to pick up the child. He Wenjua looked at Poplar Fruit with a smile and said, How is it, brother? You can't tell, right? Your brother's child can already play soy sauce. He Wenjua was 29 years old this year, but his son, He Yuchen, was already more than 7 years old. Wasn't that the same as him? He had a child at the age of 22? My situation with your sister-in-law is a little special. I went to the army very early and married her very early, He Wenjua explained simply. He Wenjua didn't say that he and Ji Xiaoyan were actually in a political marriage. However, he was relatively lucky. The woman that his family arranged for him was the type of wife and mother. After marriage, the two of them went from treating each other respectfully to helping each other in times of need. And their relationship grew deeper and deeper. He Wenjua was born in a military family. When he graduated from high school at the age of 18, he was thrown into military school. He studied while serving as a soldier, and at that time, he was basically considered a soldier. It was completely different from the leisurely life of a university student. He and Ji Xiaoyan registered their marriage the moment they reached the age of 22. Before that, the two of them accidentally got pregnant. So their child was born very early, and was now in the 2nd grade of primary school. His wife wasn't there, so He Wenjua looked at Poplar Fruit and rubbed his palms together, looking like he couldn't hold back his thirst. Brother, last time in your hometown, I didn't seriously spar with you. How about it? Let's spar today? He Wenjua licked his lips and said eagerly. Now, Poplar Fruit said somewhat awkwardly. Then who's going to take care of Kiki? You just let her lie on the armchair. He Wenjua said. We'll just keep an eye on her. That won't do. Kiki can now climb. If she's not careful, she'll fall down. Poplar Fruit shook his head like a rattledrum. Hiwunjwa wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He rolled his eyes and came up with an idea. He ran up the stairs, and then jumped down quickly with a long piece of cloth in his hand. He pulled up an armchair. Poplar Fruit didn't understand how he gestured, but soon he used the cloth to form a dam around the armchair, blocking the front of the armchair. Come carry her in. Hiwunjwa excitedly waved at Poplar Fruit. All right, Poplar Fruit couldn't persuade him, so he carried Kiki over. His hands were actually itching. Practicing martial arts every day. How could it compare to a real battle? Kiki was carried into the armchair by her father. She didn't cry, but she curiously looked around the place where she was sitting. She even reached out her small hand to touch the cloth around her. She felt that this side was different from the other 3 sides. She was very curious. Poplar Fruit and Hiwunjwa took off their shirts and stood in the middle of the living room. The two of them stared at each other, ready to fight at any moment. Kiki looked out from the gap in the cloth and saw her father and the big uncle confronting each other. She didn't move. Her eyes were wide open, and her small mouth was open. She seemed very nervous, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 136. Kiki stared fixedly at her father. She looked a little nervous, and her little hands squeezed the tight cloth into a thin rope. Poplar Fruit stared at Hiwunjwa with full concentration. In a fight, there was no distinction between brothers, only skill. He didn't have enough combat experience, so he didn't dare to be negligent. His breathing slowed down, and the muscles on his body tensed up slightly. He took a half-squat, half-stride stance, and gently rose and fell according to the frequency of his breathing. Hiwunjwa didn't dare to relax at all. He knew that Poplar Fruit was strong. He didn't know where his martial arts came from, but he wasn't inferior to the fighting experts in their army. Even if it was just a spar, he had to use 200% of his strength to deal with him. After going around in circles, the two were still facing each other. Poplar Fruit was good at maintaining his composure. Hiwunjwa's martial arts were learned in the army, so he was a little impatient. He quickly couldn't hold it in. The muscles on his right arm suddenly bulged, as if it had swelled up, and he threw a powerful punch at Poplar Fruit. Hiwunjwa was tall and strong. Even if he wasn't trained, a normal person wouldn't be able to take a punch. Moreover, he was a well-trained Special Forces soldier. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to take Hiwunjwa's punch head-on. He changed his pace, twisted his body, and dodged Hiwunjwa's punch. Then, Poplar Fruit pressed down on his left fist, and while Hiwunjwa was still unbalanced, he bent down and scooped him up. Hiwunjwa lost his balance and was thrown to the ground by Poplar Fruit. Although there was a lot of information written on it, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Poplar Fruit's reaction was much better than Hiwunjwa's. Hiwunjwa didn't have a chance to react to many of his moves. This time, Poplar Fruit didn't use any special moves. He relied purely on his reaction and strength to win. Even if many people were skilled, they might not be able to flip Hiwunjwa over. After all, he was a big man who weighed almost 200 pounds. Hiwunjwa fell to the ground, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He thought that even if he wasn't a match for Poplar Fruit, he could at least test Poplar Fruit's strength. But after this fight, he found that he was still no match for Poplar Fruit. This was too shocking. Poplar Fruit reached out and pulled Hiwunjwa up. After Hiwunjwa stood up, he looked at Poplar Fruit and said in surprise, "Brother, you're very strong too. How much strength did you use to pull me up?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head embarrassedly and said, "About 80%. In fact, he was still being modest. Hiwunjwa also stood up just now, and Poplar Fruit didn't use more than 60% of his strength. It wasn't good to be too ostentatious. Hiwunjwa was convinced this time. He patted Poplar Fruit's arm, which didn't ripple much, and said enviously, "I really don't know how you train. You don't show off, but you're still so strong. Next time, do you want to come to my barracks to take a look?" Hiwunjwa's eyes lit up and said, "You can go and play with my group of kids who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Let them understand that there are mountains beyond mountains and people beyond people. Also, I have a lot of fun and exciting things at my place." Hiwunjwa laughed. What's exciting? Ji Xiaoyan's voice came from the door. Dad. Before the person arrived, the voice came first. A dignified little boy rushed in from the door and threw himself on He Wenjua's thigh. He son, you're back? He Wenjua bent down, his large hands clamped onto his son's shoulders, and threw him up forcefully. He Yuchen was thrown into the air, but he wasn't afraid. He laughed loudly in the air, his laughter drawing a parabola in the air. When he rose to the highest point, He Wenjua stretched out his right arm and easily clamped He Yuchen's legs. He Yuchen's body turned around and sat on He Wenjua's broad shoulders. Dad. Kiki also heard He Yuchen's voice. She also shouted loudly from the armchair. She also wanted her father to hug her. At this time, He Wenjua explained to Ji Xiaoyan, who was standing at the door with a small school bag. No, I just told Poplar Fruit to come to my barracks to play. Don't bully Poplar Fruit. Ji Xiaoyan put down her school bag and said, Poplar Fruit is so thin and weak. He's not like you. His skin is rough and his flesh is thick. No matter how much you toss around, it'll be fine. He Wenjua didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, I bully him? Yanzi, you underestimate Poplar Fruit too much. With his strength, I'm already thankful that he doesn't bully me. I fought with him just now and was defeated in one move. You fought at home? Ji Xiaoyan's focus was obviously different from He Wenjua's. She frowned and reached out her right hand to He Wenjua's waist, pretending to twist it. Aya, don't. Honey, our son is here. It doesn't matter if you hurt me, but don't drop our son. He Wenjua used his son as a shield. Ji Xiaoyan snorted and said to Poplar Fruit, Poplar Fruit, don't be like your big brother. He's a rough person. Let's not argue with him. He Wenjua stood behind Ji Xiaoyan and winked. Poplar Fruit found it funny and nodded to Ji Xiaoyan. Dinner was very sumptuous. The dumplings were made by Ji Xiaoyan at noon. She also made chicken soup and white-cut chicken. The other dishes were also delicious. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This sister-in-law was really a good wife and mother. She was even so good at cooking. He Yuchen looked like his father. He had strong bones. At the age of 7, he was already more than 1.3 meters tall. He Wenjua didn't spoil this son of his. At a young age, he cultivated the good habit of eating and washing dishes by himself. The advantage of this was that He Yuchen ate very well. He didn't procrastinate and didn't rely on his parents. Poplar Fruit watched and silently made a note in his heart. In the future, he would educate Kiki like this. He Yuchen quickly finished his meal. He wasn't in the mood to chat with his father and the others. He was very active and fun, so he rushed out after washing the dishes. After a while, he and Dahe's laughter came from the yard. He and Dahe are good friends. Chun often played with Dahe when he was young. Ji Xiaoyan smiled and said, but at that time he was still in the military camp. I also want to raise a dog for Kiki, Poplar Fruit said. But I haven't thought about what kind of dog to raise yet. I don't know where to buy it. He had this idea when he was in his hometown. At that time, he took a few photos of Kiki and Fu, which received a lot of praise from netizens on the internet. Many people strongly suggested that Poplar Fruit buy Kiki a puppy and let the puppy grow up with Kiki. That would be a very happy and beautiful thing. It didn't matter if it was a puppy or a big dog. Poplar Fruit had also seen many photos of babies and dogs getting along harmoniously. It was very touching. He also wanted Kiki to have such a beautiful childhood. I have a suggestion. Ji Xiaoyan heard Poplar Fruit's words and said, you can go to the stray dog rescue station and have a look. If you find a dog that you like, you can go through the formalities and bring it home. You can also indirectly help those poor dogs. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It turned out that Ji Xiaoyan's elementary school had taken students to visit the stray dog rescue station some time ago and volunteered to help clean the kennels for homeless dogs. Since then, Ji Xiaoyan had been paying attention to these dogs and wanted to help them find families to adopt them. Seeing that Poplar Fruit still had some concerns, Ji Xiaoyan smiled and said, stray dogs are actually not as terrible as you think. They are well taken care of at the rescue station. Every dog has been vaccinated, and they are very sensible. Now that the winter is so cold, I don't know if they can survive this cold winter. If you have the ability, you might as well help them. Thinking of the whistling cold wind outside, Poplar Fruit felt a little sympathetic. He asked Ji Xiaoyan for the address of the rescue station and decided to find time to take a look. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 137. In Yangcheng's winter, there were no bald branches with withered leaves, nor was there the sound of the moon and crows, nor was there 1,000 miles of ice and snow. Looking around, the grass and trees were still green, but it was a dull green. Even the lights in the cold wind were dim, and the people were dressed clumsily. It was as if everything was lacking a bit of purity, a bit of vitality, a bit of bleakness, and a lot of lack of poetic beauty. But at least there was sunlight, nature's most beautiful gift in this winter. After Kiki recovered from her cold, Poplar Fruit didn't bring her out for a walk in the morning. But in the afternoon when the sun was shining and the outside wasn't so cold, he would bring Kiki out to bask in the sun. There was a prerequisite for basking in the sun. Poplar Fruit wouldn't casually carry Kiki outside. Kiki was after all too young and her body's immune system was weak, so it was easy for her to catch a cold. Normally, he would wrap Chi-Chi tightly in a small blanket and carry her out after feeding her milk in the afternoon. In the beginning, he was a bit embarrassed because the quilt and straps were the specialty of the village aunties when they were taking care of their children. When he walked out, Poplar Fruit was still avoiding people's strange gazes. But later on he felt relieved. It wasn't a big deal. Kiki had been taken care of by him for the past 8 months. At that time he was busy and didn't have money or good clothes. But didn't he still carry her out on the streets? Now that he had some money, he was shameless? He wanted face and didn't want his daughter? This wouldn't do. Poplar Fruit deeply reflected on himself. But going out like this, Poplar Fruit didn't feel conflicted anymore. But Kiki wasn't satisfied. Kiki didn't like being tied down. She liked to move her hands and feet freely. Especially when she was wrapped up tightly like a mummy. It was especially uncomfortable, and she struggled to get out. And Kiki frowned and twisted around, trying to find an opening to pull her little arm out. Don't move. Poplar Fruit held Kiki down and clamped her little arm through the quilt. Kiki anxiously let out a string of trembling sounds. She shouted, Want. It's useless even if you make a fuss. Poplar Fruit smiled and didn't relax. Kiki was anxious and aggrieved. She pursed her lips and cried. Hearing her cries, if it wasn't for the fact that there weren't many people outside, people would have thought that something had happened. Chi-Chi's weeping beauty looked very pitiful as large teardrops rolled down her cheeks incessantly. But Poplar Fruit noticed that although Kiki's eyes were hazy from crying, she would stop crying after a few times to see her father's reaction. Poplar Fruit was angry and amused at the same time. But at this time, no matter how soft-hearted he was, he wouldn't let Kiki struggle out of the quilt and let her frail little body face the very cold air. Don't cry. Poplar Fruit scolded Kiki with a rare stern face. If you cry again, I won't bring you out next time. Kiki didn't understand what her father said at all, but she could feel the change in her father's mood. Poplar Fruit wiped Kiki's tears with a small handkerchief. Kiki sobbed while looking at her father's stern big face in fear. Her voice gradually stopped. She still felt a little wronged, but she didn't dare to cry again. Poplar Fruit wiped away the tears on Kiki's face. Otherwise, they would dry up when the wind blew. That's more like it. Poplar Fruit kissed Kiki's little face with satisfaction. If you want to play, later when we get home, I'll let you play to your heart's content. But Kiki was still very young. She often forgot the pain after the scar healed. The next time they came out, she would struggle and cry again. Poplar Fruit could only patiently teach her a lesson every time. This was all a small episode. Sunbathing in the winter was actually a very happy thing. Strolling by the artificial lake in the residential area, the father and daughter pair dominated the whole scenery. Although it was only a man-made garden, on this winter afternoon, it had a different style. The warm sunlight spilled down and landed on the calm and still surface of the lake, refracting gorgeous colors. When it landed on the wilted and withered grass tips, it flowed with a lustrous luster. When it landed on Chi-Chi's delicate and rosy little face, it spread with a holy light. Kiki squinted her eyes comfortably under the sunlight and smiled happily. Against the sunlight, Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki. It was as if they had returned to the peak of Mount Huangshan during their graduation trip. Between the sea of clouds and the mountain, there was a seven-colored Buddha's light. It was so beautiful that it made people want to kneel on the ground. Wasn't Kiki the same at this time? On Friday night, Poplar Fruit took Kiki to Godmother's house. Song Jiwen and his family had finally returned. Because they had brought back delicious home-raised chickens from their hometown, Godmother Lu Suqing called Poplar Fruit over for dinner. After passing the order, Song Jiwen said with a smile, "Old Gua, I left you alone on the winter solstice, so I'll make up for it today." Poplar Fruit didn't agree with Song Jiwen's words. The words "make up for it" weren't wrong, but the target of "make up for it" wasn't Poplar Fruit. It was definitely the gluttonous Song Jiwen. When they arrived at Godmother's house, Poplar Fruit was the one cooking. Because they were going back to their hometown, and it was the winter solstice, Lu Suqing gave the housekeeper at home a holiday and asked her to go back and celebrate the festival with her family. So instead of saying that it was a meal for Poplar Fruit, it was better to say that it was a meal for Song Jiwen himself. Godmother had already taken the home-raised chickens from their hometown to the market in the afternoon, and found someone to kill them and clean their hair and internal organs. They were placed in the basket in white strips, saving Poplar Fruit a lot of trouble. The other ingredients were also bought. When Poplar Fruit came, he just rolled up his sleeves and went to work. Song Jiwen wanted to slack off, but Godmother wouldn't let him. She took a broom and rushed him from the sofa to the kitchen to help Poplar Fruit. "You choose and wash the vegetables," Poplar Fruit commanded. He was handling the naked chicken at this time. Although Song Jiwen's face was unhappy and he complained about his mother's inhumanity, he was still very diligent and worked hard. He didn't look like he cut corners at all when choosing and washing the vegetables. Song Jiwen's hometown was very famous for raising chickens. Because the climate was mild, the rainfall was abundant, and the land was fertile. Agriculture, forestry, animal husbandry, sideline, and fishing could all be developed in an all-round way. The local agricultural products were mainly rice, barley, wheat, corn, cassava, sweet potatoes, peanuts, and soybeans, which provided the main source of feed for raising chickens. The local terrain was mainly mountains and hills, with green bamboos and shrubs. It was evergreen all year round, and there were more insects. In addition, there were a lot of rivers and streams, which were rich in fish, shrimp, snails, clams, and other byproducts. There was rich natural bait, which provided more animal protein feed for raising chickens. Moreover, domesticated chickens generally didn't use feed containing hormones. Most of them were free-range, so although the domesticated chickens in their hometown were small in size, they had developed fat under the skin and between the muscles. They were famous for their delicious meat, thin skin, and soft bones. The best way to cook domesticated chickens was to cut them. Although Poplar Fruit had already eaten it at Huanjua's house during the winter solstice, the raw materials this time were much better, so Poplar Fruit still chose to make the cut chicken. After washing the big pot, he put in the whole chicken that had just been processed again and added water. He then turned on the fire to boil the water. While waiting, Poplar Fruit didn't stay idle. He began to prepare the other dishes. "Okay." Seeing Song Jiwen working hard at the side, Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes and an idea popped up in his mind. He turned around and ran outside, turned off the switch of the water heater, and then returned to the kitchen. He continued to do what he was doing without batting an eyelid. He washed the carrots, the pork, the pot, the dishes, and the chopping board. His movements were very smooth. In a short while, the hot water stored in the water heater was used up. Poplar Fruit snickered and stood in front of the gas stove. He used chopsticks to flip the chicken every 5 minutes and quietly watched the situation. Song Jiwen sang a rap song and leisurely chose the dishes. He picked up the big pot and turned on the tap to prepare to wash it. "Oh!" Song Jiwen wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. He had just put his hand into the basin when he jumped up. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" His godmother nervously ran over. "Did you cut your hand?" "It's okay, it's okay," Poplar Fruit said while holding back his laughter. "Who said it's okay?" Song Jiwen angrily complained. "Lao Gua, you're too hateful. You secretly turned off the hot water. Mom, you don't know how cold the water is. It's so cold that my fingers are going to fall off. Haha. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but laugh. How cold can it be? Lu Suqin looked at Song Jiwen with disdain and said, You can't even take a little bit of hardship. When I was young, I didn't have a water heater, but didn't I still wash clothes outside the house? Thinking back to those years. Okay, I was wrong, okay? His mother was about to start nagging again. Song Jiwen felt his scalp tighten. He smiled bitterly and wiped his fingers that were still dripping with water on his clothes. He pushed his mother out, not letting her repeat the old story over and over again. This isn't over. Song Jiwen exaggeratedly used his finger that was red from the cold to draw a line across his neck as he threatened coldly. Poplar Fruit pretended that he didn't see it. He laughed in his heart and continued to cook the white-cut chicken. After cooking the white-cut chicken, Poplar Fruit used 2 chopsticks to take it out and put it on a plate to wait for it to cool. After cooking the other dishes, he cut it open. It's delicious. After they started eating, Song Jiwen picked up the white and tender drumstick and ate it heartily. Under the delicacies, he forgot about the prank of taking revenge on Yanghua. Lu Suqin held Kiki and scolded Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit, did you forget to buy moisturizer for Kiki? Ah, moisturizer? Poplar Fruit was surprised. For rough men like him, products like moisturizer were for delicate women. He never thought of it. I knew you didn't. Lu Suqin held Kiki in front of Poplar Fruit and said, Look, Kiki's face is purple from the cold. If you don't use some moisturizer in winter, it will be too late for you to regret it when your skin is dry and cracked. Poplar Fruit knew that he was wrong. He nodded desperately and promised Lu Suqin that he would buy some moisturizer later. Lu Suqin shook her head and sighed in her heart. Poplar Fruit was a man taking care of a child. How could he be as considerate as a woman? Poplar Fruit's small family was still short of a woman. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 138. After eating, Poplar Fruit came back from his godmother's house. He ran to the baby products store and bought some moisturizer for Kiki before returning home. At the entrance of the residential area, Yanghua received the express delivery from the security guard and asked them to collect it on her behalf. The current logistics system was still very criticized, especially the state-run EMS. The book sent by Zheng Yujia crossed thousands of kilometers of mountains and rivers. After several days, it finally arrived in the hands of Poplar Fruit. When he got home, Poplar Fruit opened the package with a knife and took out 2 books, the original English and Chinese translation of Young Pai's Fantasy Drifting. Touching the thickness, the original English book was not as thick as the biography of Steve Jobs. It didn't take much time to finish reading such a book. However, Poplar Fruit didn't plan to read it immediately, because the next day, he had to go to the stray dog rescue station introduced by his sister-in-law, Ji Xiaoyan. After searching on the internet, Poplar Fruit also had a certain understanding of the stray dog rescue station. The stray dog rescue station was started by a very caring old couple. They first rented a piece of land in a deserted mountain area on the outskirts of the city, and then built a kennel. They got attention because they took in some dogs that had encountered misfortune. Because of several reports in the news, the stray dog rescue station received more attention. Many dog enthusiasts enthusiastically donated money to the stray dog rescue station. With their funding, the stray dog rescue station was maintained year after year. Some college student volunteers also helped to set up a public homepage for the stray dog rescue station, so that Poplar Fruit could browse its relevant information. Most of the stray dog rescue stations took in dogs. They were all stray on the street, and were sent there by kind but incompetent people. Some dogs were disabled, some were sick, some had been abused, and some had even almost become a delicacy in dog meat restaurants. They were rescued and sent here. They were carefully taken care of and treated by the kind couple and the volunteers who came and went. Slowly they regained their former vitality. Many of the stray dogs here were adopted back and felt the warmth of home again. Of course, the rescue station didn't just take in dogs. There were also some stray cats and other poor animals. However, cats and dogs were different. They were more adapted to the life of a stray. They were more vigilant and appeared less in people's sight. Many years had passed, and the size of the aid station had doubled. The main entrance, which was originally covered in cement, was now slightly repaired. The big iron door had also been replaced with a glass door and a drop-down iron gate. There was a wooden sign hanging above the door with the words "Stray Dog Rescue Station" engraved in ink. No one's name was attached. The kind couple only wanted to save the poor dogs and did not seek any credit. Poplar Fruit looked at them in awe. Poplar Fruit didn't go out until after 9 o'clock. It was too early, and the weather was still very cold. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki on a sling. When they arrived at the rescue station, it was almost noon. Pushing open the glass door of the rescue station, Poplar Fruit saw a petite, sweet-looking girl holding a notebook and making notes. She looked at each cage one by one and poked her head with a pen from time to time. The room was not too big. It was estimated to be more than 30 or 40 square meters. 2 rows of iron cages were neatly arranged on both sides of the wall. There were a few simple tables in the middle, so there was not much room for movement. Poplar Fruit could clearly hear the sounds of cats and dogs in the cages. "Hello." Poplar Fruit smiled and greeted the girl. The girl heard him and raised her head. She saw a tall figure coming through the light screen at the door. It was like a scene that could only be seen in movies. When Poplar Fruit came closer, she saw Poplar Fruit's handsome smile. It was as she had imagined. He was really a handsome guy. The girl was in a daze for a while. Suddenly, she blushed and said softly, "Hello." Poplar Fruit looked at the girl's clothes. Black plush pantyhose, indigo denim shorts and a beige long-sleeved sweater. She looked very youthful and fashionable. Of course, there was a sense of elegance over warmth. Poplar Fruit paid more attention to the girl's red vest and the cap on her head. The words "Rescue Station" were embroidered on the cap with yellow thread. Poplar Fruit asked curiously, "Excuse me, are you a staff member of the rescue station?" The girl was still in a daze. She was a little shy. She wanted to look but did not dare to look at Poplar Fruit's face. She only reacted when Poplar Fruit asked again. "No." The girl shook her head like a rattledrum and answered straightforwardly. "Ah." Poplar Fruit was confused. "No." The girl realized that her expression was wrong. She hurriedly waved her hand and said word by word, "No, I mean, we are not staff here. We are volunteers. It means that we are here to do volunteer work." The girl felt that she did not make it clear enough and added another sentence. After saying that, she regretted it because the explanation she had just added was like nonsense in retrospect. Although the air was cold, the girl's face was still hot. She felt so embarrassed that she wanted to cover her face and find a hole to hide in. So she was a volunteer. Poplar Fruit was even more confused. He looked around. Other than the barking dogs, the father and daughter, and the girl in front of him, there was no one else. "You guys?" Poplar Fruit was a little surprised and asked. "Yes." The girl opened her mouth. Before the girl could explain again, the side door on Poplar Fruit's right side opened with a squeak and hit the wall with a clang. Suddenly, the air outside poured in, bringing with it a little cold. Poplar Fruit looked over and saw a girl wearing an apron and a straw hat stumbling in. After coming in, she did not forget to hook the side door with her heel and close it again. The cold wind that had been cut off from its source finally stopped, and the room temperature slowly rose. "Apricot, come and help. It's so heavy." The girl in the straw hat was bent over, and her hands were struggling to carry a black bucket. The bucket was heavy, and she was staggering as she walked. Poplar Fruit quickly walked forward, bent down, put his hand on the handle of the bucket, and said with a smile, "Let go, let me do it." Seeing a man's hand and hearing a man's voice, the girl wearing the straw hat was stunned for a moment and said, "Okay, thank you." The girl handed the bucket to Poplar Fruit, stood up, wiped the sweat with the back of her hand, and raised her head. The straw hat was raised, and a delicate and familiar face was revealed. Guess who? Chapter 139. Thank you. The girl in the straw hat straightened her body, wiped her sweat with the back of her hand, and raised her head. With the straw hat raised, a delicate and familiar face was revealed. Poplar Fruit looked and was stunned. That oval-shaped face, those beautiful eyes that overflowed with spiritual energy, and those sweat-drenched bangs, were so familiar, so moving. Fong Bei. Poplar Fruit couldn't believe his eyes, and asked with some surprise, "Weird uncle?" Fong Bei also recognized the big boy in front of her at a glance. She also called out in surprise, "Why are you here?" "It's really you." Poplar Fruit lifted the wooden bucket effortlessly and stood up straight, laughed and said, "I was just going to ask, why are you here? And you're dressed like this." The girl in front of him was the same as the one Poplar Fruit saw at the East Lake of his alma mater, as if she walked out of a fairyland, but with the liveliness of the mortal world. She was as beautiful as a painting. However, at that time, what he saw was the Shi Huansha painting. The beauty of the beautiful fish was intoxicating. And now, what he saw in front of him was another, Zhao Junshui painting. The travel-worn one couldn't help but feel pity for her. Kiki, who was behind Poplar Fruit, didn't fall asleep. She seemed to have heard Fong Bei's voice, and couldn't help but move her body and poke her head out from behind her father's back. Fong Bei and Poplar Fruit stood face to face, and just happened to see Kiki's little head sticking out. Even though she was wearing a pink knitted hat and only her round little face could be seen, Fong Bei still immediately recognized Kiki. She shouted in surprise, "Kiki!" Kiki saw Fong Bei and was stunned for a moment, but when she heard Fong Bei's call, she was immediately happy, not knowing if she recognized Fong Bei. She patted Poplar Fruit's back, and even stretched her legs, happily giggling, "Daddy, daddy, na na." In her excitement, she couldn't even pronounce the word, "na" clearly. After that, Poplar Fruit couldn't understand. When Kiki first met Fong Bei, she was about 2 months old. It had been half a year since then. How could a child who didn't know anything recognize her? It must be that Fong Bei's charm was too great. Yes, it must be, Poplar Fruit firmly believed. At this time, Poplar Fruit was still silently criticizing Fong Bei for being too biased. She remembered Kiki's name clearly, but couldn't remember his own name. Not only did she call him by the nickname she gave him, but she also added the word strange back. "Kiki, you're here too." Fong Bei happily ran behind Poplar Fruit and greeted Kiki. "Do you still remember Sister Bei?" Hee. She chatted happily with Kiki across the air, and Poplar Fruit could only stand there with the bucket, unable to move. The girl named Xingzi was also dumbfounded. Things had developed too quickly, and she couldn't figure it out. A handsome man came into the house, and before she could get to know him better, her little friend appeared, and she actually knew him. Then a little baby suddenly appeared behind the handsome man. If this wasn't a godly turn of events, then what was? Sister Bei's hands are still very dirty. "I'll play with you later, okay?" Fong Bei said to Kiki with a smile. "Strange uncle, come help me kick it over." Fong Bei walked to the side of the cage and waved at Poplar Fruit. The bucket was filled with dog food made from rice and pig liver. Such a big bucket was very heavy. No wonder Fong Bei was staggering when she walked, but this was nothing for Poplar Fruit, and he easily carried it over with one hand. Bei. The girl named Xingzi ran over, and was about to grab Fong Bei's hand. "Don't, it's very dirty. I just cleaned the kennel inside and I haven't washed the apron and other things." Fong Bei quickly moved away, not letting her come closer. "Bei, so you know each other." The girl named Xingzi didn't come closer, and she stood at the side and asked, "Oh, we used to know each other." Fong Bei smiled and said, "Let me introduce you. This is my university roommate, my best friend, Lin Xingshan." Fong Bei turned the spoon in her hand and pointed at Poplar Fruit, and then introduced, "This is Strange Uncle. According to him, he is our senior." "It's a senior," Lin Xingshan exclaimed. "Don't listen to her nonsense." Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly. "My name is Poplar Fruit, Muiyang Gua as in fruit. I also graduated from Higashiyama University." "Then call him Brother Yang," Lin Xingshan said sweetly. "Call him Strange Uncle. Call him brother, brother. Be careful, he will take you to see the goldfish." Fong Bei couldn't help but laugh. "And Kiki, that is Strange Uncle's daughter. I haven't seen her for almost a semester, and she can already speak. I wonder if she has grown up a little? When Kiki heard her name, she poked her head out and looked around in confusion. Then, she looked at Fong Beibei and smiled foolishly. Fong Beibei was full of smiles when she introduced Kiki. Poplar Fruit's treatment was completely different from Kiki's. He stood there with a bitter smile while holding the bucket. Aya, put it down. Why are you standing there stupidly? Fong Beibei noticed and shouted. It's okay. It's not heavy, Poplar Fruit explained. At this time, Fong Beibei had already walked up. She leaned over and pulled the bucket for Poplar Fruit to put it down. It's really heavy. Fong Beibei's palm was sweaty, and it just happened to press on Poplar Fruit's hand. The soft and warm feeling was immediately transmitted to Poplar Fruit's heart. It was like a small stone thrown into a calm water surface, causing ripples. Fong Beibei also felt it. Her pretty face was hot, and she let go of her hand as if nothing had happened. She pretended that nothing had happened and said, "You can put it down." "No, it's really not heavy. If you don't believe me, look." Poplar Fruit pulled the wooden bucket up and down as if he was holding a dumbbell. Okay, Fong Beibei said anxiously. "If you are not afraid of being tired, just carry it. Don't knock down the dog's lunch." Lin Xingshan, on the other hand, was very supportive. She clapped her hands in surprise and admiration. Fong Beibei began to spoon food for the dogs in the hall. She was very patient. She scooped different amounts of dog food for each dog according to its size and physical condition. Poplar Fruit carried the bucket and followed her step by step. The two cooperated very well for the first time. Woo! Seeing the arrival of Fong Beibei, the hungry dogs ran to the door of the cage, wagging their tails, waiting for Fong Beibei's spoon to fall. They immediately bowed their heads and wolfed down the food. There were also a few cats. They were also hungry. They paced back and forth in the cage, showing that they didn't care at all, but they couldn't help but look over, revealing their desire. "This is not for you to eat," Fong Beibei said to them. "I will give you cat food later." How could the noble and cold Meow Planet people respond? They raised their heads and turned back with their tails up. However, it didn't take long for them to wander out again. They glanced at the empty food trough, yawned discontentedly, and bared their sharp teeth. The dog food in the wooden bucket gradually reached more than half. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei also came to the other row. Lin Xingshan looked at them from the side and suddenly said, "Brother Yang, what are you doing at our rescue station? Don't tell me you're here to help our Beauty Bay work?" "How could that be?" Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei said in unison. "I only know now that Fong Beibei is here. How could it be on purpose?" Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Then what are you here for?" Fong Beibei said as she scooped lunch for the dogs. Poplar Fruit remembered the purpose of his visit today. He said, "I'm here to adopt a puppy. I said I wanted to raise a dog, so a friend recommended me to come here," Poplar Fruit explained. Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit with a strange look and said, "If you want to raise a dog, why don't you go to a pet shop?" Fong Beibei's bright eyes seemed to be able to see through people's minds. Poplar Fruit scratched his head with his empty left hand and said a little embarrassedly, "My friend said that these puppies are still very pitiful. And now the winter is so cold. When the weather gets colder, I'm afraid they won't be able to survive." "I think so too. Since I want to raise a dog, I will do my part and help if I can," Poplar Fruit said. The two women burst into laughter. Lin Xingshan was the most exaggerated. She was laughing so hard that she was convulsing. Fong Beibei laughed and said, "It's not as exaggerated as you say. Our rescue station also has cold protection measures in winter." "Ah." Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. Lin Xingshan covered her mouth and tried not to laugh. She explained, "Dogs are not as delicate as you think. Look, we have cotton pads here. As long as the door is not open during winter, they will be fine." Poplar Fruit looked in the direction of her finger. A cotton-filled round mat was placed at the bottom of the kennel. He thought of Afu in his hometown. It was lying in the house at night in winter, but it was alive and kicking during the day. Only then did he realize that his idea was too naive. "But strange uncle, since you are so kind, please support our work." Seeing Poplar Fruit's embarrassed look, Fong Beibei said with a smile. In fact, they are very miserable. There is no owner to play with them here. Help these poor dogs. Poplar Fruit looked at her smile and felt warm in his heart. He could not help but nod and say, okay. But Poplar Fruit suddenly changed the topic and said, can you not call me strange uncle? Call me by my name? No. Fong Beibei said without raising her head. She scooped dog food for the last puppy, and then divided the rest among the larger puppies. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and followed her with the wooden bucket. But Fong Beibei threw the spoon into the wooden bucket, clapped her hands and said mischievously, as a reward you can remove the word strange. Why do I feel like I have heard of it before? Fong Beibei turned around and walked away with her hands behind her back, leaving behind a string of bell-like laughter. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 140. Fong Beibei ran away with a mischievous smile, and then ran back. She reached out to Poplar Fruit for the wooden bucket. Let me help you carry it. Poplar Fruit said with concern. No need. I can carry it myself. Besides, I have to put it away later. Fong Beibei grabbed the wooden bucket from Poplar Fruit's hand without any explanation. Lin Xingshan interrupted. Right, Brother Yang, if you want to raise a dog, what kind of dog do you want to adopt? Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, I don't know much about dog breeds. I only know about Tibetan Mastiffs and Huskies. But I don't have any special preferences for dog breeds. It depends on Kiki's opinion. As long as she likes it, I have no opinion at all. Lin Xingshan said with a look of disbelief. She's just a kid. Why would she choose? No, as long as she likes it, it's fine. Poplar Fruit replied. If she likes everything she sees, what will you do? Lin Xingshan smiled again. No. Fong Beibei said first. Kiki won't be like this. I think she's quite smart. Kiki was praised. As a father, Poplar Fruit was honored. He was a little embarrassed and smiled. Fong Beibei gently rolled her eyes at him and said, Weird uncle, I'm not talking about you. Look at how proud you are. You guys wait for a while. I will put the bucket away first, and then I will take you to the kennel behind. Fong Beibei left a sentence and trotted all the way with the bucket. She opened the right side door and walked in. Is there a kennel behind? Poplar Fruit asked in confusion. Yeah. Lin Xingshan didn't know how to talk when she was alone with Poplar Fruit in the room. Are you all volunteers here? Poplar Fruit tried to find a topic to talk about. He didn't want the situation to become too awkward. At this point, Poplar Fruit couldn't help but add, it means to do volunteer work. After that, Poplar Fruit laughed out loud. His laughter was a little loud, and some of the dogs were so scared that they stopped eating. They shrank back and barked at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit quickly stopped laughing and looked around in embarrassment. You're mocking me again. Lin Xingshan made 3 characters with her right hand. They dangled above her head and slid down like 3 black lines. However, this joke eased the atmosphere between the two, and Lin Xingshan was no longer so nervous. Yeah, we're all here to volunteer, Lin Xingshan said. Do you often volunteer here? Poplar Fruit asked. I'm quite familiar with Fong Beibei. No, this is my first time here. Lin Xingshan explained. The school requires 40 volunteer hours per semester. I haven't done enough yet, so I asked Beibei to bring me here to volunteer. Oh, I see. I just graduated not long ago, and the school has already set a quota for volunteer work. It's really becoming more and more bureaucratic. Yonghua sighed and said, forcing others to do what they're willing to do, the word willing has changed. No, it's not our school's fault. Many schools are already like this. Lin Xingshan defended Higashiyama University. I heard that it's a policy issued by the central government. It's not their fault. There was no solution to this problem, and it was useless to say more. Poplar Fruit didn't continue talking about this issue. What about Fong Beibei? Poplar Fruit asked. Her? She's already done her volunteer hours, Lin Xingshan said without hesitation. She looked at Poplar Fruit's expression and realized that she had answered incorrectly. She then said, Oh, you mean here? Beibei often comes here. As long as she doesn't have any other plans on the weekends, she'll come over to help. I heard that she has been working here for more than 4 years. Lin Xingshan suddenly threw out a piece of information. What, more than 4 years? Fang Beibei, who had taken off her straw hat, just walked in. She didn't hear the conversation between Lin Xingshan and Poplar Fruit. That's right. You've been volunteering here for more than 4 years. Lin Xingshan laughed. Fang Beibei poked Lin Xingshan's waist with her finger and whispered, "Don't talk nonsense." "I'm not talking nonsense. It's obviously true." Lin Xingshan joked with her and said, "Auntie Lu and the others said so." "No, I rarely came here during the college entrance examination," Fang Beibei said. "For years." Poplar Fruit felt a little incredulous. If that's the case, didn't Fang Beibei already start helping here in the 3rd year of junior high? She could serve these dogs for so long. Poplar Fruit felt that as a man he couldn't do it. Just how much love did one have to be able to do these things that no one knew about for 4 years every day? Poplar Fruit couldn't help but look at Fang Beibei. In a trance, he seemed to see a heart of gold. "Let's go to the kennels inside and have a look," Fang Beibei said. "Aren't there a lot of dogs outside?" Poplar Fruit was like a curious baby and asked, "Why don't you look outside?" Fang Beibei patiently explained to him, "The dogs outside haven't been injected with rabies seedlings. Some of them have just been sent here, and need us to take care of them for a while. If you want to raise a dog, we suggest you choose from inside first." It turned out that the stray dog rescue station cooperated with the epidemic prevention station. Every once in a while, the epidemic prevention station would send people to give the dogs a physical examination and rabies vaccination. These were all free of charge. They were doing some good things for society. However, the people in the epidemic prevention station were not free every day. They usually waited for a week or 2 before coming once. So, except for some dogs that were seriously injured, they would not come to the door at any time. Generally, the dogs that had been injected would be kept in the kennels at the back, which were larger and easier to manage. "Oh, I see. Let's go to the back and have a look." Poplar Fruit smiled. Pushing open the side door on the right, Poplar Fruit and the others filed in. Lin Xingshan and Fang Beibei walked in front, and Poplar Fruit followed behind. Behind the side door was a long corridor. There was a relatively large but simple bathroom in the corridor. That should be the place where Fang Beibei had just washed her hands and put the wooden bucket. The corridor had a corner, and Poplar Fruit followed Fang Beibei and the others. He couldn't help but look at Fang Beibei from the side. He looked at her hair, which had grown a lot more beautiful than last time. He looked at her delicate neck, looked at her crystal white earlobes, and watched her ears slowly turn from white to red. Poplar Fruit realized that his peeping had been discovered by Fang Beibei. Poplar Fruit felt that his cheeks were burning, and he was a little embarrassed. He withdrew his gaze and remained silent. A woman's sixth sense was so strong. How could she not feel it? However, Fang Beibei pretended not to know. "However," she said in her heart, "what a weird uncle. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk." Chapter 141. The kennel at the back was really big. Just like a warehouse, it would take a few minutes to walk around the inside of the kennel. There were large fans on the wall that were spinning quickly. They might be a bit old, as they kept making zap 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 sounds, but the ventilation effect was great. There was a row of glass windows on each wall, and the sunlight came in through the windows and spread over the kennel, making it look less dark and depressing. After walking in, Poplar Fruit found that the floor of the kennel was clean, and the traces of washing on it had not completely dried. "Beibei, did you come to wash it just now?" Lin Xingshan asked curiously. "Yes, the weather is good today, so I can do some cleaning," Fang Beibei said with a smile. There was an old man in the kennel, who was taking out the dog mats from each kennel one by one, and then replacing the clean dog mats according to the number. "Uncle Da," Fang Beibei said crisply. The old man looked at Poplar Fruit and the others, smiled at them, nodded, and then left with the cart full of dog mats. "Don't mind him," Fang Beibei explained to Poplar Fruit. Uncle Da doesn't like to talk much, but he is a very nice person. Is he the old man Zhang Guangda that was mentioned on the internet? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Yes, we all call him Uncle Da, Feng Beibei said with a nod. Zhang Guangda was the owner of this shelter. Poplar Fruit had seen his introduction on the internet. This old man loved dogs as much as his life when he was young, and after retiring from work 5 years ago, he and his wife came to the outskirts of the city to build this shelter. In the past 5 years, he had helped countless stray dogs. Poplar Fruit thought of his hunched back and could not help but respect him. So you cleaned the entire kennel by yourself? Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. Feng Beibei replied a little embarrassedly, yes, Uncle Da is old, and there are no volunteers coming today. Like a tour guide, Feng Beibei took Poplar Fruit and the others to see the kennel. In the middle of the large kennel, there was an open space with some simple facilities, probably for the dogs to move around. There was a row of kennels neatly arranged along the 4 walls. The kennel was designed from top to bottom. The lower level was slightly smaller, estimated to be less than 1 meter high, and was reserved for smaller dogs. The upper floor was very big. Not only was it big, but it was also wider. Big dogs like the Samoyed, the Great White Bear, and the German Shepherd lived there. Poplar Fruit looked at the kennels one by one, and realized that there were many different breeds of dogs. There were common dogs in the countryside, and there were also expensive pet dogs. This Chihuahua was probably worth a few thousand RMB. That's a teddy bear. Feng Beibei rolled her eyes at Poplar Fruit and corrected him. Poplar Fruit was speechless. He really knew nothing about the breeds of dogs. Except for the Husky and the Samoyed, which were very popular on the internet, he couldn't even name the other dogs. A poodle like a teddy bear was very small, just like a Chihuahua. He couldn't tell the difference at all. Now he was exposed. He braced himself, ignored his slip of the tongue and said, "Isn't a teddy bear very expensive? Why would its owner be willing to abandon it?" Feng Beibei was silent. She opened the cage door and gently carried the teddy bear out. Poplar Fruit noticed that the teddy bear's 2 hind legs were broken, and it was dragging weakly behind it. It could only struggle with its front legs. It was very scared when it saw a stranger, and it didn't even dare to bark twice. Poplar Fruit could still feel its small body trembling. In Feng Beibei's arms, the teddy bear was gently comforted by her, and it slowly calmed down. This teddy bear is so pitiful. Lin Xingshan's eyes were red. She said fiercely, "Its owner is too heartless. How could he have the heart to break its legs? He should be struck by lightning." Feng Beibei didn't speak. She comforted the teddy bear and put it back. However, Poplar Fruit still read a kind of sadness from her expression, and read a kind of silent accusation. In this society, there was always a small group of people with brain problems. They were bullied in the company during the day, and they were blamed by their bosses and superiors. When they came back at night, they vented their anger on their dogs. They didn't treat their dogs as companions at all. They were just their punching bags, and they could beat them as they pleased. Some people even didn't treat their dogs as living creatures. There were several videos of rich second-generation students killing puppies and rabbits on the internet. They abused and mutilated their pets for fun, and they were already mentally deformed. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were mentally perverted. Poplar Fruit saw a lot of dogs that had suffered inhuman abuse in this kennel. The most distressing one was a big Samoyed, but except for its skeleton, there was no way to see how big it was. The hair that it was so proud of had been shaved off, and its body was covered in potholes and scars from cigarette butts. Even if it was carefully taken care of in the kennel, there was no way it could grow its fluffy and beautiful white hair again. Don't think that dogs don't understand beauty. This big Samoyed seemed to feel its ugliness, and was no longer willing to look up. When Poplar Fruit walked over, its head was facing the dark wall, motionless, and it exuded a depressed atmosphere. Poplar Fruit's heart was sad, and Kiki was also a little sad. She was held in her father's arms again. Although she was still looking around very actively, no one noticed that in Kiki's eyes, there was also a little sadness and sadness. Feng Beibei walked in front, introducing the dogs here to Poplar Fruit and Lin Xingshan. From her narration, Yonggwa learned that almost every dog here had a sad past that they couldn't bear to look back on. They all had a sad past that they couldn't talk about. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei's beautiful eyes, which seemed to be able to reflect people's souls, and his heart was full of emotions. Fong Beibei was able to tell the story of every dog here, as if it was her family's treasure. It could be imagined how much time and care Fong Beibei had devoted to them. Not sure if it was because of the arrival of Fong Beibei or Kiki, but the appearance of Poplar Fruit and the others made the whole kennel boil. For a time, different sounds of dogs barking came one after another. Except for a few dogs that were not in good spirits, almost every dog was squatting at the door of the kennel, sticking out their tongues, and wagging their tails at them through the fence. The most interesting one was the bullhead terrier. Wagging its tail was not a good choice for its short tail. Looking at it shaking, it looked like it had a cramp. Look! Lin Xingshan's sharp eyes were the first to notice, and she immediately shouted. Before her voice fell, she pulled Fong Beibei and laughed. Fong Beibei and Poplar Fruit also smiled, which diluted the melancholy atmosphere between them. As they walked, Fong Beibei suddenly stopped, looking hesitant and struggling. She hesitated and said, "Originally, I shouldn't interfere with your choice. It's not fair to the other dogs." Frowning slightly, Fong Beibei paused and then said, "But there is a puppy that really needs someone to take care of it." She looked at Poplar Fruit's eyes and said softly, "I'm just giving you a suggestion. How do you decide? I hope you won't be influenced by my words." Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei's awkward expression. He didn't know why, but he always felt a little anxious. He couldn't help but say, "It's okay, take me to see it." Fong Beibei looked deeply at Poplar Fruit and took them straight to the depths of the kennel. There was a separate large cage, not under the small cage. However, Poplar Fruit didn't feel any movement in the cage. Fong Beibei moved aside, so that Poplar Fruit could see the situation inside. This space was bigger than an ordinary kennel. The sunlight was slanted into the space, and half of the space was immersed in darkness. There was a huge golden retriever lying there quietly. It gave people a feeling of depression that was even stronger than the melancholy Samyed. Poplar Fruit remembered that Fong Beibei just said puppy. But how was this golden retriever small? However, although the golden retriever looked very big, it gave people the feeling that it was a lamp that had run out of oil. It was skinny, and even a lot of its hair had fallen off. Poplar Fruit squatted down. It couldn't even lift its head. Its eyes were slightly open, and it bared its fangs, but it couldn't even make a low growl. Seeing its sunken eyes, it was obviously terminally ill. Poplar Fruit was very confused. Did Fong Beibei introduce me to this big golden retriever that is half buried in the soil? Poplar Fruit squatted down. Fong Beibei didn't see his expression, and just quietly waited for Poplar Fruit to make a decision. Woo-woo. There seemed to be a puppy barking sound coming from the kennel. The sound was so faint that Yonggwa didn't notice it for a while in this room full of dogs barking, until he heard a second sound. What was that? Poplar Fruit looked in the direction of the sound. At this time, he saw that in the deeper part of the kennel, in the shadowy place, there was a ball of meat wriggling. It was wriggling towards the shriveled RT on the big golden retriever's chest. You should be able to guess what was written on it. But after sucking hard, not much juice flowed out. It was so hungry that it whimpered and wriggled, biting another RT. Fong Beibei, with tears in her eyes, took a small stick and a small bowl of white juice from the side, and squatted down. She reached into the cage. At this time, the big golden retriever had no strength to resist Fong Beibei's approach. It just continued to bare its fangs weakly. Fong Beibei used the small stick to drip a few drops of juice on the place where the little dog, who couldn't even open its eyes, was biting. It immediately felt it and sucked it clean. After repeating this many times, Fong Beibei finally fed it full. The little dog licked its mouth, and then moved back into the big golden retriever's stomach with satisfaction. It laid down on its stomach and didn't move at all. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 142. Squatting on the left side of Poplar Fruit, Fong Beibei sadly told them the story of the big golden retriever, Mama Jean. It turned out that the big golden retriever was affectionately called Mama Jean by the people at the stray dog rescue station. Listening to Fong Beibei's story, Poplar Fruit seemed to recall the scene of that night. It was a dark and windy night. The cold wind was bleak, and the shadows of the trees were bleak. Mama Jean walked out of a small shop with the lights still on and trotted to the dark and empty street. With its big belly, it was able to eat a full meal with the help of the kind-hearted owner of the midnight snack stall. Perhaps this time, it would have enough energy to give birth to the dog baby that it had been pregnant for a long time. Mama Jean was very happy. Even when she crossed the road, her footsteps were shaky. This was the best day since she started to wander. Bang! Squeak! In the night sky, the sound was so harsh. Vroom! With the sound of the engine starting, the motorcycle that caused the accident fled, leaving only Mama Jean lying on the ground in a pool of blood. The owner of the supper stall came out and saw the tragic situation of Mama Jean. He was ready to deal with the funeral, but Mama Jean was still struggling. So the kind shop owner sent Mama Jean to a stray dog rescue center not far away that very night. In the middle of the night, Uncle De accompanied the veterinarian, who was awakened by knocking on the door, to perform emergency treatment for Mama Jean. Even the veterinarian felt that Mama Jean was too seriously injured to survive. But she survived and saw the sun the next day. Although Mama Jean was barely alive, she persisted for 4 days. Until yesterday, when she gave birth to the dog baby in her belly. Unfortunately, only one of the puppies survived. But it was lucky because in such a car accident, there was still a dog baby that survived. It was not a waste of Mama Jean's persistence. However, after giving birth to the dog baby, Mama Jean seemed to have exhausted almost all of her vitality and could no longer struggle. Today he observed that Mama Jean's spirit was getting worse and worse. She could not eat anything at all. Uncle De fed her food, but later, the food flowed out of her mouth. It looks like it's going to die soon. If it goes, what will happen to the puppy in the future? Fong Beibei sobbed. Poplar Fruit felt uncomfortable when he heard that. He moved closer to take a closer look. At this moment, Kiki, who was in Poplar Fruit's arms, moved. She called out softly, "Hey!" Perhaps it was just a meaningless tone, but it was like a string being plucked, causing ripples. Madame Jean opened her eyes a little more. Her already cloudy eyeballs moved a little as she looked at Chi-Chi. Her unfocused pupils started to focus a little. Somehow Mama Jean managed to get up half of her body. She turned around and picked up the golden puppy with her mouth. She slowly moved to the door of the kennel and pushed it in the direction of Poplar Fruit. After doing this, she seemed to have used up all her strength. Her huge body fell to the ground, making a muffled sound as she hit the cage. The golden puppy seemed to have been woken up by the noise. It hummed and moved to the side of Mama Jean, but Mama Jean pushed it back again. Her half-opened eyes looked at Poplar Fruit with a pleading look. Poplar Fruit was surprised. Was she asking him to take care of her puppy again? Huh? What should I say again? Poplar Fruit could not help but look at Kiki in his arms. As if they had telepathy, Kiki raised her head. Her pure and flawless eyes were shining as she looked at her father. After looking for a while, Kiki patted her father's arm. She pointed at the golden puppy that was sniffing around with its eyelids closed. She mumbled, "Daddy." "Yes, yes." Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Although he came here, he never thought of adopting a puppy that had just been born. But didn't Kiki like it? What was so difficult about adopting it? Moreover, adopting this puppy would not only be a good deed, but it would also make Kiki and Fong Beibei happy. What reason did he have to say no? Looking at Mama Jean's pleading eyes, Poplar Fruit smiled and nodded at her. Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit expectantly. Poplar Fruit turned to Fong Beibei and smiled. "Beibei, since this puppy is so fated to be with Kiki, let's adopt it." "Really?" Fong Beibei stood up and covered her mouth with her hands. Her face was full of surprise. "Really?" Poplar Fruit said firmly. "It's not cooked." Lin Xingshan, who was easily amused by Poplar Fruit's last joke, laughed again. Fong Beibei also laughed softly, her eyes reflecting the smile. At noon, Mama Jean still could not hold on and closed her eyes forever. Poplar Fruit accompanied Fong Beibei and the people at the stray dog rescue station to hold a simple funeral for Mama Jean. Fortunately, he brought milk powder for Kiki, so Poplar Fruit was not in a hurry to go home. In the afternoon, under the care of another owner of the stray dog rescue station, Grandma Lu, Poplar Fruit began the adoption procedures. Fong Beibei read the details on behalf of Zhang Xian. If you are a caring local of Yangqing and have plans to raise a dog recently, we welcome you to come to the rescue station to apply to adopt a stray dog. In order to give the dog a warm home, you must provide a copy of your ID card and a copy of your household register to show that you are a resident of the city and have a fixed address. Did you bring it? Fong Beibei asked Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit nodded. He had seen the requirements on the website before and had brought the required documents. In order to make it easier for you to walk the dog and for you to raise the dog with peace of mind, please give the dog a status and apply for a dog license for the dog. In order to cultivate a good dog training environment, please tie the dog with a leash when you walk it. Do not keep it in a pen, chain, or stray. Do not abuse the dog. Treat and take care of it when it is sick. Poplar Fruit had actually seen these requirements on the internet, but Fong Beibei was still worried and insisted on reading them again. Grandma Lu asked Fong Beibei to take photos of Poplar Fruit and the golden retriever puppy. This was to facilitate file management and prevent situations such as loss or abuse. In addition to signing the adoption contract, Poplar Fruit also paid a deposit of 200 yuan. This deposit was to prevent dog traffickers. After half a year, if the rescue station confirmed that Poplar Fruit and the dog got along well, the deposit would be returned. Of course, Poplar Fruit did not intend to ask for the deposit back. In order to show his love, he had donated 20,000 yuan at the rescue station this afternoon. After completing the procedures, Grandma Lu thanked Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit avoided her in fear. She smiled and said, Of course. You adopted the puppy and donated to our rescue station. This is not only a show of love, but also a show of support for us. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 143. However, since you have adopted the puppy, you must treat it well in the future. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask Beibei. Grandma Lu looked kindly at Fong Beibei and said, In the future, Beibei will represent our rescue station and visit you from time to time to see how you get along with the puppy. If she causes you any trouble, please forgive her. Fong Beibei will visit. How could it be trouble? Poplar Fruit couldn't be happier. He waved his hand and laughed. No, you're always welcome, haha. Good. Grandma Lu smiled and patted Fong Beibei's hand, but looked kindly at Kiki in Poplar Fruit's arms, and said to Poplar Fruit, Nowadays, there aren't many kind young people like you. Beibei, I'm going back to the back. It's getting late, don't work too late, go back early. Grandma Lu smiled and said goodbye to Poplar Fruit, and went back to the doghouse. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei blankly, not knowing what to do. Fong Beibei looked at him and smiled. Wait here for a while, let's pack up and leave together. Okay, do you need my help? Poplar Fruit said. No, you just take care of Kiki. Fong Beibei was very straightforward, holding Lin Xingshan's hand, and the two of them went to wash their hands and change their clothes. When they came out, Fong Beibei had already changed into a thick down jacket and a beige knitted scarf around her neck. She looked like a city beauty in winter, which made Poplar Fruit's eyes light up. Let's go, Fong Beibei said as she walked to Poplar Fruit's side, and helped Poplar Fruit lift the small basket containing the golden retriever puppy. Where are we going? Poplar Fruit asked. Let's go back. Lin Xingshan giggled. Not yet. We need to go to the pet shop. Fong Beibei patted Lin Xingshan's hand and said, I'm going to take Uncle to buy some food for the puppy. How do you raise a newborn puppy? As they walked, Poplar Fruit asked. Such a little thing should be different from what a big dog eats, right? Fong Beibei patiently taught him. Yes. Generally speaking, it's best for puppies to drink breast milk, just like babies. But Mother Jean has left, and you don't have any other bitches who have just given birth to puppies. So we have to find another way. When you don't have dog breast milk, you need to be careful not to feed it milk or yogurt directly. At this time, puppy's digestive ability is not good enough. That will cause a lot of adverse reactions, diarrhea, and even threaten their lives. Fong Beibei said. Poplar Fruit walked forward and listened quietly. He stood on the left side of Fong Beibei. Lin Xingshan held Fong Beibei's right hand, and the two of them walked together. They walked to the bus station and got on the only bus. Poplar Fruit followed Fong Beibei and got off at a stop. There's a pet shop here. Everyone says it's good, Fong Beibei said. When they found the shop, Poplar Fruit and the others walked in. It was a big shop, and there were many kinds of pets inside. He had heard that people raised lizards before. Today he finally saw a pet lizard. There were even small pet pigs. Poplar Fruit felt that it was an eye-opener. Fong Beibei didn't bring Poplar Fruit here to pick a pet. They went straight to the point and walked to the shelf of pet products. A waiter came to greet them, but Fong Beibei smiled and refused. No, we can do it ourselves. Standing in front of the shelf, Fong Beibei picked up 2 bags of milk powder and said to Poplar Fruit, "These are for young dogs. Both of them are good, but the brands are different. Then you decide. We'll take whichever you choose," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit helplessly and put one of the bags back. She said, "Then we'll buy this bag. The pet shop is more than $10 more expensive than online, but the quality of this shop is still guaranteed. I don't know which shop sells authentic ones online. If you want to buy one in the future, choose carefully online." Poplar Fruit raised his eyebrows and said, "Then we might as well buy a few more bags at once. It'll be enough for 2 or 3 weeks. Fong Beibei had to take 3 more bags of milk powder from the shelf and put them in Lin Xingshan's basket. She said, "This is enough. In the future, the dog will not only eat milk powder, so I'll tell you in 2 weeks. And this." Fong Beibei picked it up and showed it to Poplar Fruit. It was a pacifier covered with a syringe. The puppy doesn't eat much each time. You can use this to feed it 2 milliliters each time. You have to feed it every 3 hours. Fong Beibei reminded, especially at night, don't oversleep and starve the dog. Well, wasn't this the second Kiki? Poplar Fruit didn't seem to care. Kiki was so difficult to take care of, but he had been feeding it to this day. Could a dog be more difficult than Kiki? Poplar Fruit didn't believe it. Let me tell you, the feeding of a dog is completely different from that of a baby. Fong Beibei saw that Poplar Fruit was not so nervous, and told him seriously, What's the difference?" Poplar Fruit humbly asked for advice. "You can't let it drink milk while lying down, because if it drinks milk like this, the position will cause it to vomit milk and choke on milk." Fong Beibei said, "You have to pick up the puppy like this." Fong Beibei demonstrated in the air and said, "Let it lie down. Hold the puppy's chin with your left hand and let its head be slightly raised. Then squeeze some milk from the syringe and gently rub it near the puppy's mouth and nose with the pacifier." Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei and was a little fascinated. Fong Beibei looked up and saw his expression. She asked helplessly, "Are you listening?" Poplar Fruit woke up at this time. Fortunately, his memory was extraordinary. He immediately found the audio information in his mind, filtered and analyzed the key points and said, "Yes, I'm listening. Use the pacifier and gently rub it near the puppy's mouth and nose." Then what? It turned out that he was listening. Fong Beibei thought that she had misunderstood Poplar Fruit. She was a little embarrassed and said, "Let it smell the milk. It's best to let the puppy take the initiative to eat. Note that when you push the needle, don't push it too fast. It should be intermittent. Don't feed it too fast or the puppy will choke. If the puppy can't take the initiative to drink milk, then you can cut the pacifier short and leave a small section." Fong Beibei gestured and said, "Put the pacifier in from the side of the mouth, and then push the syringe slowly to feed it. The puppy should have a swallowing reflex. After feeding it milk, wipe the dirt on its mouth and chin with a warm wet towel. As long as it can drink milk, the puppy can live well," Fong Beibei said. Of course, you can't throw it outside in the cold wind. The puppy they were carrying was wrapped in a small cushion, so that it wouldn't be too cold in the basket. Poplar Fruit certainly understood this. He smiled and nodded. Are we going to buy a nest for it? Poplar Fruit joked. I can't draw a circle with chalk and keep it there. Then you have to pick one yourself. Fong Beibei took Poplar Fruit to see a variety of dog nests. Buy this. It's a small house, a mansion. Lin Xingshan pointed to the tall dog nest and shouted happily. Lower your voice. Fong Beibei pulled Lin Xingshan. Kiki is asleep, don't disturb her. It's okay. Is this dog nest good? Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He went forward and touched the dog nest made of wood. No. Fong Beibei rejected. Except for looking good, it's not useful at all. And the puppy is still so small. How can it use such a big dog nest? Fong Beibei thought for a moment and said, you can buy a better cotton pad now, and then use a big cardboard box to make a nest. Pay attention to the ventilation and keep the nest dry. This is enough. You don't have to buy a dog nest. So the Golden Retriever's dog nest changed from a luxurious and high-quality dog nest to a simple and ugly handmade cardboard box. If the Golden Retriever could understand human language, it would definitely jump out and spit at Poplar Fruit. It would even say to him, be a man. Don't listen to a woman. Be a man. Don't listen to a woman's nonsense. After buying some miscellaneous things, Poplar Fruit went to pay the bill. Lin Xingshan and Fong Beibei carried the things and followed behind him. After leaving the pet shop, it was almost dinner time. Poplar Fruit treated Fong Beibei and the others to a small restaurant nearby for a meal. It had to be said that in the middle of winter, people wouldn't feel too cold if they ate something to warm themselves up. Although for Poplar Fruit the cold was not scary, for Fong Beibei and the others, when they had not eaten, they were really cold and shivering. On the way back, Poplar Fruit used the excuse that he had a lot of things to buy to stop them from taking the bus. If they took the bus back from there, they would have to take a big detour to the subway. Not only was it troublesome, but it was also unsafe. Poplar Fruit sat in the front seat and asked the taxi to send Fong Beibei and the others back to school first. He did not let the driver leave until he saw them enter the school gate. When he left, Poplar Fruit's heart was filled with joy. Today was really a good day. He actually met Fong Beibei again at that place. Was this fate? Most likely. Although he did not think so, Poplar Fruit began to secretly look forward to Fong Beibei's visit in 3 days. At this moment, walking on the quiet school road, Lin Xingshan and Fong Beibei were also talking about Poplar Fruit. Beibei, don't you think that Poplar Fruit is very handsome? Lin Xingshan said. What's the use of being handsome? Can he be eaten? Fong Beibei laughed and said, Apricot, could it be that you have feelings for him? Who was the one who kept saying that no one could catch her eye? Go, you are the one who has feelings for him. Lin Xingshan said angrily. I think that he is indeed handsome, and seems to be quite rich. Don't know why, when Lin Xingshan said that he was rich, Fong Beibei suddenly became silent. She somewhat sadly walked forward. Lin Xingshan did not know, she said to herself. It's a pity. He already has a child, you say. Why are all the good men in the world taken? Right, Beibei. Lin Xingshan shook her hand and said, actually, I think the two of you are quite compatible. What nonsense. Fong Beibei pinched Lin Xingshan's arm and said, don't talk nonsense. By the way, have you noticed that today is actually Christmas Eve? Yes, Christmas Eve. Apricot, tonight you will obediently give yourself to me. Haha. The girls' laughter gradually drifted away in the cold night sky. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 144. This is a very good book. Poplar Fruit thought as he closed the book with the blue of the sea as its cover. Just like what was painted on the cover. A man and a tiger were lying quietly on a small dinghy in a sea of sharks. The picture was so quiet that it was a little strange. It was so harmonious that it didn't make sense. This book was the same. A book full of nonsense could be used to describe the story told in this book. This book described a fantasy and absurd adventure story. A 16-year-old Indian boy and a Bengal tiger drifted together on the Pacific Ocean for 227 days, before they were both reborn. Ridiculous. How could a man and a tiger coexist on a small boat with difficulty moving freely? How could they survive on the vast Pacific Ocean for more than 200 days? What did they eat to survive for such a long time? And why didn't the Bengal tiger eat the Indian boy when it was hungry? These questions constantly challenged the reader's ability to accept. When Poplar Fruit began to read this book, he was quickly attracted to it. There were many chapters and stories that seemed to foreshadow the protagonist's future. These foreshadowing made the reader's heart itch and unable to stop. After returning from the rescue station, other than taking care of Kiki and the golden retriever, Poplar Fruit spent the whole day reading this book. He even left Kiki aside to play with her toys. The author's description of the scene and the creation of the atmosphere had reached the point of perfection. There was noise in the boat, the low moaning sound of machinery. I tripped and fell. I wasn't hurt. I got up. I held on to the railing and took 4 steps at a time to run down the stairwell. Just as I ran down one floor, I saw water. A lot of water. The water blocked my way. The water was like a noisy crowd coming up from below. It surged, rolled, and bubbled. The stairs disappeared into the dark water. I couldn't believe my eyes. What's with the water? Where did the water come from? I felt like I was nailed to the spot. My heart was filled with fear and doubt. I didn't know what to do next. My family is down there. No one had predicted that the ship would sink, but it seemed that only the protagonist had discovered it. It seemed that he was the only one who had to face such a disaster, and the pain of losing his loved ones helplessly. The full text only described the scene in detail, but between the lines, one could clearly feel the protagonist's despair and confusion. Even though the atmosphere was oppressive, there were still some scenes that made people want to laugh out loud. I clearly heard the monkey screams. Something was shaking the deck. A white-limbed aurochs, the Indian aurochs, suddenly burst out of the rain and rumbled past me. It was frightened and became enraged, unable to control itself. I looked at it, stunned. Heavens, who let it out? There was actually a wild bull running wildly in a boat that was swaying in the wind and rain. How could people not find it absurd and funny? There was also the zebra that weighed more than 500 pounds and crashed into the lifeboat from the air. There were also many unbelievable but joyous scenes. All of these made the beginning of the disaster less depressing. Before lunch, Poplar Fruit saw the chapter where the protagonist found the Bengal tiger on the boat. This made Poplar Fruit lose his appetite. While he was eating, he was thinking about what measures the protagonist would take if he was faced with a lively tiger in such a predicament. After eating quickly, Poplar Fruit did not take a break and continued reading. The good news was that there was still a lot of material on the lifeboat, but the bad news was that the Bengal tiger had occupied the lifeboat and was eyeing him covetously. I picked up the rat and threw it at him. Now I can still remember the scene of the rat flying through the air. Its claws and tail. Richard Parker? Parker opened his throat and the squeaking rat disappeared into it, like a baseball disappearing into a catcher's glove. Its hairless tail disappeared into its mouth like a strand of spaghetti. It was another interesting and detailed description. Faced with a tiger, the protagonist had 6 plans in his mind to kill it, but in the end, he chose the 7th plan. In order to not face an enemy that was scarier than a tiger, the despairing loneliness, the protagonist decided to let it live. However, coexisting with a hungry tiger was not an easy task. Later on, the protagonist had to go through many twists and turns, and had to escape from the tiger's jaws several times before he successfully tamed the ferocious Bengal tiger. He did not even have to hide in the small raft, and he was able to coexist with the tiger on the lifeboat. This was a long floating journey, and the protagonist had many incredible experiences. Among them, the one that left the deepest impression was the carnivorous island. The island was so beautiful that it was dazzling, and he did not want to leave it again. However, on this island that was entangled with seaweed and tree roots, there was a hair-raising truth. If the protagonist had not peeled the fruit that wrapped the human molar, he would never have realized that this was an island that would devour and digest all living things at night. These trees are carnivorous too, but the acid level is much lower. When the other parts of the island are bubbling, the trees are a safe place to spend the night. However, once a person dies and stops moving, the trees will slowly wrap the body, digest it, and filter the nutrients from the bones until the bones disappear. Finally, even the teeth will disappear. Drifting was even more despairing than Robinson Crusoe. However, the good thing was that the protagonist only drifted on the Pacific Ocean for more than 200 days, and most of these 200 days were spent fighting with the tiger. In the end, the protagonist was rescued. Although he was rescued, Poplar Fruit read the later chapters several times. The ending was too confusing. Poplar Fruit could not figure out whether the story described in the first 200 pages of the book was true, or the story fabricated by the PI and the few representatives sent by the companies in the country. However, this possibility might be the sublimation of the book. No matter what, even if the book was not a great literary work, the story would definitely be able to attract people. Yonghua could even foresee how popular Lian's film would become in this day and age where the special effects of movies had reached their peak. Those who recommended the book were not only some famous media, but also many Chinese and foreign celebrities. Not to mention others, the President of the United States, Obama, gave a very high evaluation. The book was an elegant proof of God's existence, a perfect demonstration of the power of stories. Teacher Zhou Guoping, a famous author that Chinese people were more familiar with, also praised, "We need this story, of course, not to hide our bestial nature, but to have confidence in our humanity." But why? Why was it that such a wonderful book had such poor sales in the Chinese mainland? Flipping open the Chinese translation, Poplar Fruit had a sudden realization. It was not that the book was bad, but that the translation had cheated the book. From this point onwards, the following content is purely fabricated and has nothing to do with reality. The translation of this book could be used as a textbook example of what not to do. This was what Poplar Fruit said when he was in a meeting with Guan Yanan and the others. The translation could not be word for word, sentence for sentence. Such a translation did seem to convey the meaning of the original text to the readers. However, in reality, they were only translating the literal meaning of the original text. Using Nita's functional equivalence theory, they did not give the translated readers the same feeling as the original text readers. Simply put, they did not reach the standard of faith in faith, expressiveness, and elegance. What was faith? The meaning did not deviate from the original text, which meant that the translation had to be accurate, not distorted, not omitted, and not arbitrarily added or subtracted meaning. However, as translators, they did not even understand the original text, so how could they fully translate the meaning of the original text? In the first volume, the author had laid down a lot of foreshadowing and spent a lot of effort to describe many metaphors. However, in the translation, Poplar Fruit only saw the plot laid out plainly, and there was no trace of thought-provoking. The first volume of the Chinese translation that Poplar Fruit saw was very plain, just like a running account. It was so plain that one would not be interested in reading the second volume after flipping through the first volume. From the perspective of the readers, Poplar Fruit felt that 40% of the readers would give up on the book because they felt bored, and the remaining half would give up on the idea of buying it because they did not know what was going on. No wonder this book sold so poorly despite being recommended by so many famous people. If it were him, this book would definitely not be so dull and boring. Poplar Fruit directly threw this trashy Chinese translation into the trash can. He wondered how he would read this book if he were the one translating it. After pondering for a while, he flipped through a few hundred words in his mind. From these few hundred words, he could see that the effect was a few hundred times better than the Chinese translation. This was not him boasting, but the actual effect was indeed so. Poplar Fruit still had a certain amount of confidence in his ability to appreciate books. After all, he was a well-read person. Finally, Poplar Fruit called Zheng Yujie. "It's this book. I'm confident." "Really?" Zheng Yujie said in surprise. "Can we also ride on Lian's coattails?" "Don't worry." Because of his confidence in his ability, Poplar Fruit said domineeringly, "This book is a good one. Even if Lian is not making a movie, I can still help you sell it." Zheng Yujie patted her sofa and laughed heartily. "Okay, I'll report it tomorrow." "Poplar Fruit, you said it. When the time comes, I'll ask you to translate it. Don't stand me up." Poplar Fruit said with a smile. No problem. Actually, after reading this book, my hands are a little itchy now. I can't wait to start. That won't do, Zheng Yujie said with a smile. You have to wait for us to get the publishing rights of this book. Otherwise, won't your efforts be in vain? Then how long do we have to wait? Poplar Fruit said with a little disappointment. Zheng Yujie hesitated for a moment and said, After the Spring Festival, I'll try to get them to hurry up. After the Spring Festival, we'll fight side by side again. Huh? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 145. After they finished talking about business, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie's conversation finally began. I heard that you have a puppy? Zheng Yujie asked curiously. Yeah? How did you know? Poplar Fruit was surprised. He had just brought the puppy home yesterday. Zheng Yujie had already found out today? Haha, who told you to post the photo on Weibo? Of course I know. Zheng Yujie laughed loudly. You followed my Weibo? Poplar Fruit asked. I didn't know. In the past 2 months, too many people had followed Poplar Fruit, so many that he had to block the notifications of new followers. Zheng Yujie had never told him about it, so of course he didn't know. Haha, I secretly followed it. How did you know? So, you have to pay attention to your words in the future. Don't think that I don't know when you secretly scold me on the internet. Zheng Yujie said proudly. Is there a function to secretly follow? Poplar Fruit laughed and changed the topic. Why didn't I find out? No, don't change the topic. Zheng Yujie shouted. Then we have to quickly give Xinlong a suggestion. Maybe he'll accept it. Yonggwa didn't know what was good for her, and continued to talk nonsense. Don't change the topic. Zheng Yujie said angrily, slapping the sofa. Oh, then what topic were you talking about? Poplar Fruit asked. What topic? Zheng Yujie was so amused by Poplar Fruit's joke that she forgot what she wanted to say. Haha. Poplar Fruit laughed proudly. Zheng Yujie was also annoyed by him. She threw a pillow on the bed as if she wanted to kill this bad guy. She laughed and said, Look at your nonsense. I forgot what I wanted to say. He talked about dogs. Poplar Fruit kindly reminded him. Yes, a dog. Didn't you post a photo yesterday, saying that you raised a dog for Kiki? Zheng Yujie asked. I think it's a golden retriever, right? Yes, just born, Poplar Fruit said. You brought it back as soon as it was born? Zheng Yujie asked in surprise. Which pet shop is so reckless? The female dog has to take care of the puppy for a while. I didn't buy it from a pet store, Poplar Fruit said. I adopted it from a stray dog rescue center. It's like this. Poplar Fruit briefly told Zheng Yujie the story of the golden retriever and Mama Jean. So that's how it is. Then it's quite pitiful, Zheng Yujie said, lying on the sofa and twirling a thread exposed by the sofa cover. Zheng Yujie's personality was more straightforward and carefree. After listening to the story, she didn't show much sadness, unlike Feng Beibei and the others who cried yesterday. Actually, if you want to raise a dog for Kiki, you don't have to go to the rescue center. Zheng Yujie said. I have a friend here who is in this line. What kind of dog do you want? I can get it for you. She counted with her fingers and said, Samoyed, Chow Chow, St. Bernard sausage and so on. Even if you want an authentic Tibetan Mastiff from the plateau, he can get it for you. Moreover, my friend's dogs all have pedigree certificates, and I guarantee that they are all excellent purebred dogs. Haha, no need to go through so much trouble. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Thank you for your kindness, but I don't care about breed or pedigree when I raise a dog. As long as Kiki likes it, it's fine. This golden retriever puppy is quite fated to be with Kiki. Then you have to take it for more checkups, Zheng Yujie said worriedly. I'm afraid that it has fleas or some strange disease. I don't want it to touch Kiki. Don't worry, but it has already been checked at the rescue center, Poplar Fruit laughed. Before the adoption, the stray dog rescue center asked the veterinarian to do a comprehensive examination of the golden retriever puppy. Poplar Fruit was still very assured about this. And now, the golden retriever puppy couldn't even open its eyes. It was harmless to humans and animals, so Poplar Fruit was not worried. Zheng Yujie didn't want to discuss this issue anymore. She chatted for a while and suddenly said tentatively, "Little Fruit, today is Christmas. Did you ask any cute girls out to play?" "Yes. It's Christmas." Poplar Fruit looked out of the window. The sky was not dark yet, and it was cold as usual. This year's Christmas had come quietly. If Zheng Yujie hadn't said so, it would probably have left quietly. For the past few years, he had spent Christmas with Lu Yunran. On Christmas Eve, they would go out to watch a movie or eat a big meal, and then walk slowly along the neon-dotted Pearl River. On Christmas Eve, the two would go to a quiet and elegant coffee shop, sweetly opening each other's gifts. This year, would there be someone else by her side? Poplar Fruit didn't know, but he should have come alone. Hey, why aren't you talking?" The other side suddenly became quiet. Zheng Yujie thought that the line had been disconnected. "Oh, nothing." Poplar Fruit recovered at this time. He smiled slightly and said, "There are no cute girls. We can't spend Christmas Day like this, just stay at home." "I see." Zheng Yujie carelessly ignored Poplar Fruit's inexplicable silence. She said regretfully, "If I didn't have to work overtime this week, I would have flown over to play with you." "Haha, you don't have to go through so much trouble." Poplar Fruit laughed. "It's just a Western holiday. I don't think we have to celebrate it." "Hey, aren't you an English student? This holiday is as important as the Spring Festival in the West. Can't you accept it?" Zheng Yujie asked curiously. "No, it's two different things," Poplar Fruit explained. "First of all, it doesn't mean that English students have to celebrate Western holidays. Secondly, I didn't say that I don't accept it. I just feel that there's no need to celebrate a foreign holiday since I'm alone now. I should just relax." No matter what, Zheng Yujie felt that after chatting with Poplar Fruit, her heart calmed down a lot. At least she knew that he had no one by his side. In fact, she really wanted to fly over to accompany Poplar Fruit for this holiday, which in her opinion was quite important. She had even bought a gift. However, the managing editor stopped her at the crucial moment and told her that she had to work overtime for Christmas. Zheng Yujie could only give up. As Zheng Yujie's mother's best friend, although Peng Yu did not expose Zheng Yujie's matter, she had been paying attention to Zheng Yujie's every move. Zheng Yujie was booking a plane ticket and buying a gift when Christmas was approaching. How could that excitement escape her eyes? In order to prevent Zheng Yujie from falling deeper and deeper into an irreversible situation, Peng Yu could only find an excuse to keep Zheng Yujie in Beijing. Although Zheng Yujie kept muttering that Auntie Peng was not loyal, Peng Yu could only insist on doing so. After chatting for a long time, Poplar Fruit was about to cook and bathe Kiki. Zheng Yujie reluctantly said, "That's it then. Merry Christmas." When Poplar Fruit's Merry Christmas came from the other side of the phone, Zheng Yujie happily put down the phone. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 146. Today Poplar Fruit was particularly active. He came back early from his morning exercise. He did not sit silently in front of the computer after breakfast as he usually did. First, he tidied up the bedroom, living room, and every other room. He folded the quilt, put the cups, and put the books back on the bookshelf. Then he cleaned the living room. There might be hair shavings hidden in the carpet, so he used the vacuum cleaner to clean every corner. Poplar Fruit also opened the door and windows of the living room. While ventilating, he used a wet towel to wipe the dining table, coffee table, and cabinets. Maybe the dishes on the dining table were not drained last night. There was a circle of white marks on the table. Poplar Fruit also wiped it a few times with a rag. Then he went to the kitchen. There was a lot of oil on the kitchen hood. Poplar Fruit wiped it again and again. Finally, Poplar Fruit found a dry rag to wipe the water that splashed out from the sink. After doing all this, Poplar Fruit sat down on the sofa in the living room with satisfaction. He looked at the room that became extraordinarily fresh and bright under the blowing of some cold wind. Why did he go through so much trouble? Because Fang Beibei was coming today. Poplar Fruit thought to himself, I have to perform better. I don't want Feng Beibei to think that I'm a decadent man. He felt that he wanted to show Feng Beibei that he could provide a good living environment for Goldie, and not for any other reason. Yes, that was definitely the case. After Kiki got up, Poplar Fruit fed her milk and cleaned up her diapers. He let her play in her amusement park. Poplar Fruit immediately washed the diapers that Kiki changed. He did not wash them at night as usual because there might be a strange smell in the toilet. Goldie-o. Right, Poplar Fruit gave the golden retriever such a name yesterday. If Kiki could think now, she did not know if she would be glad that Poplar Fruit had a flash of inspiration when he gave her a name. Otherwise, if Poplar Fruit gave her such a vulgar name, she really wanted to cry but had no tears. Poplar Fruit walked through the dining room and passed by its little nest. Goldie might have felt the vibration of his footsteps. It hummed and raised its head from its dog cushion. Awake. Poplar Fruit squatted down and touched Goldie's little head. It still could not open its eyes. Eyelids drooping, it used its head to rub against Poplar Fruit's hand. Goldie opened its mouth and sniffed around. You want to drink milk, right? Poplar Fruit laughed. He stood up and went to the kitchen to take out Goldie's milk bottle. He took out some dog milk that had been prepared and warmed up. Poplar Fruit carried Goldie out and fed it according to the method that Feng Beibei taught him. Goldie had an advantage, and that was that it could eat a lot. This was not only reflected in its appetite. When Poplar Fruit fed it for the first time, it could suck out the milk by itself using the pacifier. There was no need for Poplar Fruit to do anything else. Daddy. Kiki sat on the carpet and played with her toys. When she looked up, she saw the golden retriever in her father's arms. She smiled and shouted, waving her hands. Yes, yes. Poplar Fruit had also fed Goldie. When he heard his daughter's call, he smiled and said, Wait a minute. I'll let Goldie play with you. He wiped Goldie's mouth and checked that there was no excrement on its body. He then carried Goldie over and gently placed it on the carpet beside Kiki. Goldie was put down. Based on its body's senses, it discovered that the surrounding environment had changed. It moved around restlessly and whimpered. Suddenly, a fleshy little hand reached over and pressed on its body. Giggle. Chi-Chi touched the gold and smiled happily. She even raised her head and looked at her father as if she was showing off. Poplar Fruit sat down on the sofa and looked at her with a smile. After Goldie was held down by Chi-Chi, it began to struggle and squirm. Kiki let go of it and then crawled over to lean against Goldie. She was not much bigger than Goldie. Goldie felt the warmth of Kiki's body. Its fear and anxiety slowly calmed down. It snuggled under Chi-Chi's body and stopped moving. Kiki also lay down beside Goldie. She reached out and touched Goldie's back and smiled sweetly. Click. A sound was heard. Kiki looked up at her father. Poplar Fruit was laughing and taking photos of her and Goldie with his iPhone. It was very boring. Kiki turned back to play with Goldie. Poplar Fruit's right thumb and index finger moved up and down on the phone screen. He had a satisfied smile on his face. This is the effect I want. He slightly adjusted the size of the photo and wrote a Weibo post. Feng Beibei had class and called to say that she could not come in the morning. She made an appointment with Poplar Fruit to come later in the afternoon. Then let her stay for dinner. Poplar Fruit was secretly delighted. He ran to the kitchen and opened the fridge. He looked at the ingredients inside and thought about what kind of dishes to cook tonight. He even went out at noon after Kiki fell asleep to buy a few seasonings. Waiting was a long and boring process. At around 3:30, Poplar Fruit sat in the living room and read a book. As he read, Feng Beibei's face popped up in his mind. He could not bear to continue reading. Feeling uneasy, he simply stood up and paced around the living room. Kiki, who was playing with herself in the amusement park, heard the sound and looked up in surprise. She tilted her head and looked at her father in confusion. Since it's like this, let's cook. Poplar Fruit clapped his hands and walked into the kitchen. He took out the pork belly from the fridge and separated the fat from the lean. Then he cut them into long thin strips. Then he laid the meat strips on the chopping board and repeatedly chopped them with a kitchen knife until they were minced. Then he put them into a big bowl and mixed them well with cooking wine. The water chestnuts, that is, the water chestnuts, were also peeled and chopped. Then he poured them into the minced meat, added salt and starch, and kneaded them. That was not enough. Poplar Fruit put the meat in a fresh keeping bag and patted it repeatedly. He smeared oil on the clay pot, washed the rice and poured it in. Then he poured in a certain proportion of water and waited for it to slowly soak for a while. In addition to his signature pot rice, Poplar Fruit also prepared a pot of corn and radish pork rib soup. After blanching the cut pork ribs, he washed the meat and then added water to boil it with red dates. After the water boiled, the air was soon filled with a tempting meat fragrance. Woo-woo. Goldie's nose was very sharp. When it smelled the meat fragrance, it began to rub restlessly in its cardboard box. Poplar Fruit walked over, squatted down, and happily patted its little head. He said, "Goldie, are you hungry again? But you can't eat meat right now. Don't worry, follow Dad and you'll have a good life." Haha. Poplar Fruit mixed milk for it to drink. After playing with it for about 10 minutes, he went back to cook the soup. Just as he poured the cut corn and radish into the soup, Poplar Fruit's phone on the coffee table rang. Kiki heard the theme song of City in the Sky. She happily raised her head and crawled in the direction of the coffee table. Coming. Poplar Fruit was faster than Kiki. As soon as the voice fell, he saw Poplar Fruit rush out of the kitchen like a whirlwind. With a leap, he stepped over Kiki's amusement park of cardboard boxes. Then he bent down and grabbed his phone. At this time, he still had the apron on his body. Kiki was crawling when her father suddenly appeared. She was a little surprised. She froze in place, but her little head moved along with her father's figure. Poplar Fruit walked back and forth while answering the phone. Okay. I'll be right there. After putting down the phone, Poplar Fruit bent down, put his face in front of Kiki, and said with a smile, "Kiki, Auntie Bebe is coming." Hearing this name, Kiki's eyes lit up. At this time, she was using both hands to support herself on the carpet. She couldn't wave her hands to express her feelings, but from her beaming face, it could be seen that she was very happy. Bebe. Suddenly, Kiki called out these two words. Poplar Fruit was stunned. He never taught Kiki how to say Fong Bebe's name. But Chi-Chi had learned it by herself just like that. She was really too smart. Although Poplar Fruit heard a lot of praises from others, he was still shocked by his daughter's genius performance time and time again. Father is going to pick up Auntie Bebe. When she arrives later, you must say hello to her. Time was tight, so Poplar Fruit didn't say much to Kiki. He quickly took off the apron and hung it in the kitchen. Then he took his leather jacket from the bed, put it on, and zipped it up, preparing to leave. "Ah!" Kiki called out anxiously. Poplar Fruit stood at the door and stopped. He thought about it. He couldn't let Kiki be alone at home when she was awake. So he turned back and put the jacket on Kiki, then wrapped her in a blanket before carrying her out. Although it was afternoon, because it was the 12th lunar month, the air outside was very cold. It was said that it was snowing in the north again. The north wind whistled in Yangcheng, and the temperature dropped by a few degrees. If a person stayed outside for a long time, their hands and feet would feel cold, and their whole body would feel like it was frozen. Poplar Fruit only wore a home long-sleeved t-shirt under the leather jacket, and it wasn't the kind with flannel. He zipped up the leather jacket, but the cold wind still poured into his neck. Only the current Poplar Fruit, he couldn't do it in the past, was so unafraid of the cold. He had internal energy to protect his body, and it was like a warm current flowing through his meridians under his skin. His whole body was warm. After Poplar Fruit walked out, he became more and more anxious. When Fong Bebe called him, she had already arrived. The bus stop was on the street, and there was no cover at all. How cold was she standing there and being blown by the wind? As Yonggwa thought about it, her footsteps quickened. When he was about to reach the bus stop, Poplar Fruit saw Fong Bebe, leaning on the bus stop sign from afar. Her white clothes were very conspicuous against the dark green bus stop. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 147. When he got closer, Poplar Fruit could see clearly. Feng Beibei didn't wear gloves or a hat. Instead, she wore a white down jacket and white trousers. He didn't know if she had long johns underneath, but these clothes weren't enough in such cold weather. Feng Beibei was rubbing her hands, stamping her feet and shivering. She was leaning against the bus stop sign, but how could a bus stop block the pervasive cold wind? Seeing her face was purple from the wind, Poplar Fruit's heart tightened. Without saying a word, he unzipped his jacket. Although it was a bit troublesome to hold Kiki, he still took off his leather jacket. "Uncle." Feng Beibei looked up and saw Poplar Fruit and called out in surprise. Seeing Poplar Fruit taking off his jacket, she quickly walked over and held Poplar Fruit's hand and said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy? It's so cold." Poplar Fruit pulled his hand out of Feng Beibei's cold hands and said with a smile, "It's okay, I have thick skin." He took off his jacket and covered Feng Beibei's body with it. Poplar Fruit was much taller than Feng Beibei. His jacket was also very long. When it covered Feng Beibei's body, the hem hung down to her knees. "You're wearing so little." Feng Beibei saw Poplar Fruit only had a long-sleeved t-shirt left. She protested and wanted to put the jacket back to Poplar Fruit. "It's really not cold." Poplar Fruit pressed the jacket down without any explanation. Feng Beibei's shoulders and neck were wrapped, only her head was exposed. With Poplar Fruit's jacket covering her body, Feng Beibei seemed to be finally isolated from the biting cold wind outside. She suddenly felt a lot warmer. There was no point in arguing. Instead, it would only make the two of them suffer in the wind for a few more minutes. Unable to dissuade Poplar Fruit, Feng Beibei stretched her arm out of her sleeve and pushed Poplar Fruit's arm. She said, "Let's go. Don't stand here and talk." Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Okay, come with me." He led Feng Beibei back the way they came. From the bus stop, they still had to take 2 turns to reach the entrance of the residential area. "So it's here. I couldn't find it after looking for a long time," Feng Beibei said with a frown. "Didn't I tell you to tell me a few stops in advance to pick you up?" Poplar Fruit rebuked. They walked into the apartment building. Once they were past the curfew and out of the cold wind, it finally warmed up. Feng Beibei muttered and said, "I thought I could find the way by myself. That way, you wouldn't have to make another trip. Who knew, when I got off the bus, I couldn't find the way. There was no one on the road. I couldn't even ask for directions. Although you didn't have to make a turn, it's not a direct route. After getting off the bus, the road is so complicated." Poplar Fruit pressed the elevator button and nagged, "It's your first time here. You should have let me pick you up." "Okay," Feng Beibei said, "I know." The two of them walked into the elevator. At this time, Kiki heard Feng Beibei's voice. She struggled to stretch out her hand and head from the tight quilt. Poplar Fruit pressed her back. Kiki began to be unhappy. She sadly groaned and showed signs of crying. "Hey, why are you like this?" Feng Beibei saw and scolded. In the elevator, the temperature rose again. Feng Beibei took off Poplar Fruit's jacket and handed it to Poplar Fruit. Then she reached out for Kiki. She hugged Kiki and pulled the quilt away. She deftly used one hand to wrap the quilt again. This time, after she folded it again, the small quilt was folded into the shape of clothes. Kiki's hand went through the gap of the quilt and then wrapped it again. Not only did it look good, it also did not affect her free movement. The shackles that made her feel uncomfortable had disappeared, and Chi-Chi smiled widely. She took the initiative to hug Feng Beibei's neck, and kissed her on her face that was still a little cold. Being kissed, Feng Beibei was very happy. She held Kiki's little hand and smiled. "Good Kiki, stupid uncle. Good Kiki, stupid uncle." Poplar Fruit looked and was a little jealous. Every time, he had to put his face close to Kiki and coax her for a while before she was willing to kiss him. But facing Feng Beibei, Kiki was so proactive every time. This was too much of a blow to him as a father. "What you did just now was wrong," Feng Beibei explained. "You wrapped Kiki with the quilt like a dumpling, trapping her hands and feet. Her blood vessels were suppressed and unable to circulate. How could she feel comfortable?" Poplar Fruit readily accepted. He listened humbly and nodded like a chick pecking at rice. When they reached home, Poplar Fruit took out the key to open the door. Feng Beibei followed in. She looked around and asked curiously, Uncle, is your wife not home? Wife. Poplar Fruit had never heard this word in his life. Poplar Fruit did not react for a moment. He took off his shoes and asked subconsciously, Your wife, Kiki's mother? Feng Beibei said. Hearing this word, Kiki remembered that she could say it too. She clapped her hands and said happily, Mother. No. Poplar Fruit touched his head and said, Kiki doesn't have a mother, and I don't have a wife. Ah. Feng Beibei was confused. She covered Kiki's ears and whispered, No way? You adopted Kiki? Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment. He quickly waved his hand and said, No, Kiki is my daughter, my biological daughter. Then how? Feng Beibei was even more confused. Who doesn't have a mother? It can't be that she popped out from a crack in a rock, right? It's a long story. Poplar Fruit was a little confused. When facing Feng Beibei, he did not know how to explain it to her. Kiki's biological mother died when she gave birth to her, but she really isn't my wife. Actually, I'm not close to her, Poplar Fruit said. That was a mistake, kind of like a one-night stand. When he said this word, Poplar Fruit wanted to slap himself. How could he say that? He was usually good at talking, and he specialized in dealing with words. How could he not know how to speak now? It wasn't a one-night stand, it was drunk. Poplar Fruit found that he was making things worse. Okay, you don't have to explain. I understand, Feng Beibei said. She added in her heart, Isn't it just a game that rich people often play? Abandoning the woman after playing with her. Feng Beibei frowned. Her heart was still wavering. That's not right. I don't think Weird Uncle is such a bad person. He's usually quite nice. He's also very nice to the dogs and Kiki. Why would he do something like that? Could there be some misunderstanding? It shouldn't be a misunderstanding, right? Kiki's mother gave birth to his child, but he hasn't married her yet. That's not right. If it weren't for the fact that you're a responsible father, I wouldn't have bothered with Weird Uncle. You understand? What do you understand? Poplar Fruit wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Forget it, there was no need to explain. He simply shut his mouth, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 148. Feng Beibei, with Kiki in her arms, looked at the amusement park that Poplar Fruit decorated for her, and walked over with great interest. Poplar Fruit followed behind, lowered his head, and said, Watch your step, you have to step over here. Sniffing, Feng Beibei, who was about to lift her right foot, retracted it. She turned her head and asked Poplar Fruit in confusion, Uncle, are you cooking something? Poplar Fruit nodded and said, Yes, I am cooking soup. With the fire on? Feng Beibei asked. Poplar Fruit felt a little bad. He shrugged his shoulders and said, It's like this. Feng Beibei pushed him away and went straight to the kitchen. Puppy lives here. Poplar Fruit shouted from behind when they passed by the dining room. But Feng Beibei ignored him, walked into the kitchen and looked inside. Poplar Fruit scratched his head, and had to bite the bullet and follow her in. You left the fire here and ran out? Feng Beibei turned her head and stared at Poplar Fruit, and said angrily, I thought that it wouldn't matter if I came up quickly. Poplar Fruit explained. What if you couldn't find me and took a long time? Feng Beibei scolded. If the water dried up or boiled out and extinguished the fire, wouldn't it be dangerous? Feng Beibei was right, it was indeed his fault. Poplar Fruit no longer quibbled, and bowed his head to admit his mistake. In fact, the heater was on in the house, and Feng Beibei soon felt hot. She temporarily handed Kiki back to Poplar Fruit, and took off her down jacket. She was wearing a tight sweater, and when she took off her jacket, her beautiful curves were exposed. Poplar Fruit's eyes were stuck on her like a magnet, and he could not take them off. Feng Beibei looked at him, and said with a smile, Uncle, do you want me to add the word strange again? Poplar Fruit was a guest, so he led Feng Beibei to visit the house. There was nothing else to praise, no matter how clean and tidy it was. In the eyes of girls, it was still a bit messy. The only thing that made Feng Beibei stop and marvel was Poplar Fruit Study. Fong Beibei was taken aback by the bookshelves around her, and the books on one side of the bookshelves that were already filled with books. I couldn't tell, Uncle, you are a person who loves to read, Fong Beibei said in surprise. Poplar Fruit was indeed more fond of reading than before. Firstly, it was because he could gain much more from reading than before. His eidetic memory was not just for show, he could absorb the nutrients of the sea of knowledge like a sponge. The more he read, the more excited he became. Secondly, he had enough time to read. In the past, when he worked in a foreign trade company, he had no control over his time, and sometimes he had to socialize. When he returned to his residence, he felt physically and mentally exhausted. With such a tight life, how could he find time to read? It was already good enough that he could squeeze out some time to learn about his line of work. Now, because he had to take care of Kiki, he spent most of his time at home. When he was tired from translating, he could flip through books. This kind of life was too comfortable. Therefore, Poplar Fruit would buy some books online almost every few days. In less than a few months, his bookshelf was already full. After walking out, Fong Beibei took Kiki, sat down on the sofa, and asked, Uncle, by the way, don't you have to go to work today? I don't have to go to work. I am a freelancer, and I usually translate for people. Poplar Fruit laughed. Oh, no wonder there are so many language books on your bookshelf that I don't understand. Fong Beibei nodded and said, You don't understand? Poplar Fruit said doubtfully, There are still a lot of words written in Chinese. My English is not good. Are you a fellow student? It seems to be very high class. Fong Beibei said. She was talking about the abbreviation of simultaneous interpretation. It means that without waiting for the speaker to pause, the interpreter can simultaneously translate the speaker's words to the audience. Simultaneous interpretation is almost the pinnacle of interpretation. Poplar Fruit had not tried this line of work. Of course, he felt that if he was asked to do it now, it should not be a problem. No, I mainly do translation. Poplar Fruit shook his head and laughed. In the past, Poplar Fruit also considered doing simultaneous interpretation. The income of simultaneous interpretation was much higher than translation. It charged by the hour, and one could earn thousands to tens of thousands of yuan per hour. However, the problem was that they needed to go out frequently, and Yanghua had no choice. As a single father, and a father like Chi-Chi who couldn't leave his side for even a moment, he could only give up on this option. Of course, if there was a chance in the future, Poplar Fruit would not necessarily do it. Because he was not short of money now, and his interest in translation was getting bigger and bigger. He was more willing to spend more time and effort on more creative work. That's amazing. How many books have you translated so far? Fong Beibei said admiringly. Ugh. Poplar Fruit was a little ashamed. He went to the study room and took out a copy of the biography of Steve Jobs. He handed it to Fong Beibei and said, Not many, just one. And it's not even a complete book. Poplar Fruit felt that this book was translated with others, so it could not be considered as his translation. It's this book. A few days ago, a few people in my class bought it. Fong Beibei flipped through it and said in surprise, So it was you who translated it? Just this one. Poplar Fruit said embarrassedly, That's still very good. You're still young. Fong Beibei said as she patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder like an old man. Kiki saw it, and she groped her way over. She copied Fong Beibei and patted her father's shoulder. Then she giggled and turned around to hug Fong Beibei's neck. Looking at the two people playing around, Poplar Fruit smiled helplessly. You can translate such a thick book, that's amazing. Fong Beibei said, My biggest headache right now is English. Huh. Poplar Fruit was a little puzzled. She said in frustration, I don't even know how to do my CET 4 and CET 6 exams. When I took the entrance exam, I got the lowest score and was assigned to the first class. Poplar Fruit was an English major. He didn't take the entrance exam, but he still knew that Higashiyama University's entrance exam was still a little important. Because which class you were assigned to, it would determine the time to take the CET 4 and CET 6 exams. The third class was the fastest, and you can take the CET for exams directly in your freshman year. The first class was a little miserable, and you need to slowly learn from university English. Hearing her say this, Poplar Fruit asked puzzledly, "No way, weren't you admitted in advance? Your grades should be very good." Poplar Fruit himself took the Higashiyama University's entrance exam when he was in high school, but he didn't pass the first round. Who said that the early admission results are good? Fong Beibei rolled her eyes at Poplar Fruit and said, "My grades are not good, and I'm very biased. My English is the worst." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 149. Oh, Poplar Fruit understood. Then you were admitted in advance through the competition. Beibei. Kiki saw that Fong Beibei and her father were chatting happily, and neither of them was paying attention to her. She became anxious, and Kiki's little hands wrapped around Fong Beibei's neck. She put her mouth next to her ear and called out coquettishly. "Yes." Fong Beibei answered happily. She hugged Kiki in front of her and kissed her lovingly. She praised, "You know how to call me by my name. You're so smart." "Uncle, when did you teach her?" Fong Beibei asked. Poplar Fruit wanted to say that he taught her, but he felt that it would be too hypocritical. He told her honestly, "I didn't teach her. Maybe she heard too much and learned it herself." Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit in surprise, but did not say anything. Poplar Fruit did not know how ambiguous his words sounded in Fong Beibei's ears. If she learned it as she listened, then how many times must he have whispered Kiki's name in her ear every day? If Poplar Fruit knew, he would probably cry but have no tears. He did not want to. Who asked his daughter to be so smart? She was almost a demon. Fong Beibei and Kiki were having fun. Poplar Fruit smiled, got up, and went to the kitchen. There were still a few steps to the soup. "I couldn't tell, but you're pretty good at it." Poplar Fruit was busy in the kitchen for a while. As he was cutting cucumbers, Fong Beibei's voice suddenly came from the door. Poplar Fruit turned around and saw Fong Beibei standing at the kitchen door with Kiki in her arms, looking at him with a smile. For some reason, looking at her smile, Poplar Fruit felt a rush of excitement. "Haha, I'm alone at home. As I cook every day, my skills have been honed." Poplar Fruit laughed. After that, he turned around and continued to cook. Poplar Fruit said without turning his head, "By the way, aren't you here for a home visit today? Gold's nest is in the dining room. Do you see it?" "I see it," Fong Beibei said. "I saw it when I came in. I saw that it was sleeping soundly, so I didn't disturb it." Fong Beibei suddenly frowned and asked, "Jinzi? Who gave it this name? It's so unpleasant." I gave it a name." Poplar Fruit looked back at her with a little embarrassment. "Is it not good?" "It's not bad. It just feels too vulgar." Fong Beibei thought for a while and said, "Is it?" Poplar Fruit explained, "I think it's pretty good. Jinzi is originally a golden retriever. In the future, its fur will be golden. Also, it's called Jinzi because we think it's very precious and important to us." "If you say it like that, then it's fine," Fong Beibei said. "It's just that I feel that it has something to do with money." "Then can you help to give it a name?" Poplar Fruit laughed happily. Fong Beibei gave him a dirty look and said, "No, we have so many dogs. I've named it so many times. I'm getting tired of it." "Do you have a dog called Jinzi?" Poplar Fruit asked. "No." "Then let's call it Jinzi. It's so unique, right?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "It's probably the only one in the world." "How is that possible?" Fong Beibei said. "But it's okay to call it Jinzi the puppy. I think the more I call it, the better it sounds. Hee hee. By the way, are you going to have dinner here tonight before going back?" Poplar Fruit laughed. No need to be so troublesome. I'll go back after sitting for a while." Fong Beibei quickly waved her hand and said. Poplar Fruit said, "It's not troublesome. Look, my vegetables are all washed here. It's no trouble." "But it'll be too late to go back by then," Fong Beibei said. "It'll take an hour to go back by bus." "It's okay, I'll do it right away. It's not even 5 o'clock yet. Let's eat early, and then I'll send you to the bus." I promise it won't be too late, Poplar Fruit said. But Fong Beibei was still a little hesitant. Seeing this, Poplar Fruit took out his trump card and said, Kiki, quickly call Beibei. Ask Aunt Beibei to stay for dinner. Hearing her father's call, Kiki was very obedient. She called out crisply, Beibei. Every time she called Beibei, she was very happy. It could be heard from the volume of her voice. Okay, I won't go. Fong Beibei's heart softened. She laughed and said, But Kiki, don't listen to your father's nonsense. You should call Sister Beibei. Sister Beibei is not that old. Yes. You're young and beautiful, lively and lovely, 18 years old. Poplar Fruit flattered. That's right, I'm 18 years old, Fong Beibei said proudly. Since Fong Beibei stayed for dinner, Poplar Fruit did not stay idle. He quickly began to cook the prepared steamed rice. He put the rice and water into the casserole and boiled it over a large fire. After more than 10 minutes, when the rice and water were boiled, small holes appeared on the surface. Poplar Fruit continued to cook the meat patty on the surface. After cooking for a while, he cracked 2 eggs and covered it with the lid. When the meat patty was about 80% cooked, Poplar Fruit turned off the fire and let it continue to simmer against the residual heat of the casserole. During the cooking process, Poplar Fruit did not stay idle. He tossed the oil pan to cook other dishes. Finally, he boiled a few small vegetables with hot water and took them out to drain. The sauce was the key to making steamed rice. The sauce was made with water, light soy sauce, fish sauce, soy sauce, salt, sugar, and other ingredients. It did not need too much, just a small bowl would be enough. After the steamed rice had been simmering for more than 10 minutes, Poplar Fruit opened the lid and added the boiled vegetables. Then he evenly poured the sauce over them. As soon as the sauce was poured over, the aroma of the steamed rice immediately overflowed. Even the closed kitchen door could not hide it. Woo-woo. Goldie, who smelled the aroma in its sleep, began to kick its legs and cry out. Fong Beibei could not stop laughing. When the dishes were ready, Poplar Fruit placed them on the table one by one. At this time his cell phone suddenly rang. It was a call from the express delivery. After hanging up the phone, Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and said to Fong Beibei, Beibei, help me take care of Kiki at home. I'm going out to get the express delivery. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. He did not want to go out with Kiki in the quilt again. Moreover, he trusted Fong Beibei quite a lot. Okay, no problem. Fong Beibei smiled and said, Hey, put on your clothes. Poplar Fruit, who had just opened the door, turned around. Fong Beibei led him to the leather jacket hanging on the stool and threw it to him. Poplar Fruit took the jacket, smiled at her, and went out. Poplar Fruit arrived at the entrance of the neighborhood and realized that he had been tricked by the express delivery guy. He had not arrived yet. In the end, the express delivery guy made Poplar Fruit wait for almost 15 minutes. In fact, waiting was not a big deal. Poplar Fruit was just worried that if he left for too long, Kiki would go crazy. He had tried. From the moment Kiki was born until now, when she was awake, Kiki could not leave her father's side. Even her own mother could not. As long as she did not see her father, she would cry and make a fuss. Of course, the press conference was an exception. Kiki thought that the Poplar Fruit on the big screen was her father in real life. However, there was no big screen at home now. Moreover, Poplar Fruit did not bring his cell phone out. When he finally got the express delivery, Poplar Fruit, who was burning with anxiety, jogged all the way. He thought that when he reached the door, he would hear Kiki's heartbreaking cries. However, when he opened the door, Poplar Fruit did not hear anything. He only saw Fong Beibei at the dining table, acting coquettishly in Kiki's arms and having fun with Fong Beibei. You're back? You've been gone for so long. Fong Beibei smiled and said. What happened? Poplar Fruit asked in confusion. What do you mean what happened? Fong Beibei was confused by his question. Kiki, Poplar Fruit said, she didn't cry and make a fuss. No, she was fine the whole time. Fong Beibei smiled and said. That's not right. Poplar Fruit said. This was too strange. It was the first time that Kiki did not cry and make a fuss after being away from her father for so long. It was too illogical. It was like the sun that rose in the east, and set in the west suddenly rose in the west. Seriously, isn't it a good thing that your child doesn't cry and make a fuss? Fong Beibei said unhappily. Don't tell me you're hoping that Kiki will cry. You're underestimating me. Poplar Fruit explained. No, that's not what I meant. Kiki is like this. He spent a few minutes to explain Kiki's situation clearly. That's pretty good. Fong Beibei covered her mouth and laughed. This means that Kiki and I are very close. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, It seems like that's true. I feel that the two of you are too fated. Suddenly, Poplar Fruit thought of something that he was worried about before. Beibei. Poplar Fruit sat beside Beibei and said, Can you do me a favor? Poplar Fruit said hesitantly. What favor? Since Kiki likes to play with you so much, can you help me take care of her? Just for 2 days. Poplar Fruit said. Ah. Fong Beibei was a little confused. Do you have something urgent tomorrow? Not tomorrow. Poplar Fruit said, It's next week. Poplar Fruit explained in detail. It turned out that next Wednesday was the National Master's exam. Poplar Fruit had been hesitating about what to do. His original plan was to ask his godmother to help take care of him, so that he could finish the exam earlier. But now he had a better choice. Wow, you're going to take the postgraduate exam. Fong Beibei said in surprise. Yes, I'm going to take the postgraduate exam at our Higashiyama University. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. How about it? Can you help me? You don't have to come here. My exam is at the school. You can help me take care of it at the school. After the exam, I'll treat you to a meal. Even if you don't treat me to a meal, I'll help you. Fong Beibei rolled her eyes at him and said, We can be considered friends. Since we're friends, don't say such things. It's too vulgar. Poplar Fruit said apologetically, Okay. It's my fault. So you agree? Yes. Isn't it just helping you take care of Kiki? I still want to play with her more. Fong Beibei used her finger to tease Kiki's little neck. Kiki's neck was itchy and shrunk back. Then she stretched out her little hand and wanted to grab Fong Beibei's finger. Fong Beibei suddenly pulled back her hand when she was about to grab Kiki's finger. But Kiki was not angry. She laughed happily. Ga, hee. All kinds of laughter could be heard. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 150. You want to take the postgraduate entrance exam? Why don't I see any postgraduate entrance exam books in your study? Fong Beibei asked doubtfully. She had seen many senior brothers and sisters who took the postgraduate entrance exam. They were all very diligent. They spent all day in the library or study room, doing one exercise book after another. I might be a little different from the others who took the postgraduate entrance exam. Poplar Fruit thought for a moment and explained. I can take the postgraduate entrance exam without reviewing a lot of things. These knowledge are usually memorized by heart. Only politics needs to be reviewed. I also reviewed that. The book was left in my hometown, and I didn't bring it back. Oh, I see. Fong Beibei didn't know much about the postgraduate entrance exam. She was only in the first semester of her undergraduate degree. How could she think so far ahead? Let's eat. Poplar Fruit got up, took off his coat and hung it back in the bedroom. Then he said to Fong Beibei, Kiki, sit here. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki's baby seat out. Kiki was carried in so that Fong Beibei could wash her hands and eat. After washing the dishes, they drank the soup first. Poplar Fruit gave Fong Beibei a big bowl of pork ribs and corn soup. Fong Beibei said, okay. Don't eat too much. I can't eat anymore. Poplar Fruit made 2 dishes and a soup today. It sounded a little small, but with the pot of rice, it was more than enough for 2 people to eat. Wow. Uncle, you are so good. The color, smell, and taste are perfect. Fong Beibei praised the dishes on the table while drinking the soup, especially the pot of rice. The green vegetables were dotted on the egg yolk and meat patty. It was fragrant and beautiful, making people drool. Eat. Poplar Fruit scooped a big bowl of pot of rice and gave it to Fong Beibei. He handed the chopsticks and smiled. Well, it's delicious. Fong Beibei said. You should eat too. Poplar Fruit took out a glass of warm milk from the kitchen. He fed it to Kiki and smiled at Fong Beibei. It was also time for Kiki to eat. He couldn't let Kiki watch them eat with an empty stomach. It's okay. You eat first. I'll be done soon. Poplar Fruit smiled. After feeding Kiki, Poplar Fruit went to the table to eat with Fong Beibei. By the way, you mentioned that you won a prize in a competition. What kind of competition was that? Poplar Fruit chatted with Fong Beibei while eating. Mathematics. Fong Beibei said. Mathematics? So powerful. What prize did you get? Poplar Fruit asked. Wait. Fong Beibei said with her mouth stuffed with food. So powerful. Poplar Fruit was shocked. He couldn't imagine that the beautiful girl in front of him had won the first prize in the National High School Mathematics League. Although he studied liberal arts, he was no stranger to this competition. When he was in high school, he had a good friend who studied this. Poplar Fruit saw his friend's problem book. It was completely beyond the scope of human beings. He couldn't understand the Fermat point, the principle of inclusivity and exclusion, and Chibushev's inequalities. The maze of formulas even made him doubt education. Was the mathematics they were learning the same subject as the mathematics he was learning? Poplar Fruit's good friend took the exam for 2 years. His best result was only the 3rd prize. You know, his mathematics results were usually ranked 1st or 2nd in school. At least, during the 3 years that Poplar Fruit was in school, no one in his high school had won the 1st prize. But Fong Beibei won the 1st prize. Poplar Fruit didn't know how to describe his surprise. Actually, there was one thing that Fong Beibei didn't say. Not only did she win the 1st prize, but her competition results were also among the best in Guangdong province. Because of this, she was selected to participate in the Chinese Mathematical Olympiad and the National High School Mathematics Winter Camp. The participants of this winter camp were basically all admitted to the key universities. If Fong Beibei wasn't too biased in her subject and her results were too bad, she wouldn't have been admitted to Shuimu University and Beijing University. Otherwise, she wouldn't have fallen to the point where she could only go to Higashiyama University. Exaggeration. In the winter camp, Fong Beibei's results were also very good. In the final competition, she actually squeezed into the top 60 and was selected by the national training team. This was an amazing thing. Although it wasn't considered the national team, it was still a national team. Thinking about it, the annual training list of the National Olympic team for football and basketball, everyone understood the value of this training team. It was a pity that Fong Beibei didn't make it to the end. Her results were far from the top 6, and the top 6 Olympiad geniuses were selected to represent the country in the International Mathematical Olympiad. Even if Fong Beibei didn't make it to the national team, she was still very good. At least, in the field of mathematics, even if Poplar Fruit became smarter, he still didn't dare to touch it. So, are you still studying mathematics? Poplar Fruit asked. Yes, mathematics and applied mathematics major, mainly in the field of mathematics. Fong Beibei smiled. Then what are you studying? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. What are the main courses? Now I'm still building the foundation, but I'm also slowly learning ordinary differential equations, complex variable functions, functional analysis, abstract algebra, differential geometry, and so on. Fong Beibei smiled. Poplar Fruit only felt that a few crows were flying in the sky. His eyes were rolling, but he didn't understand at all. Haha. Fong Beibei looked at him, put down her chopsticks and laughed. You don't understand, right? Yes. Yonghua sighed and nodded. She didn't know what he was talking about. What you guys are learning is too advanced. No, I think you're the amazing one. Fong Beibei said. Your English should have passed the 8th grade, but I'm still worried about English. I don't want to fail at the end of the semester, and if I can't pass the 4th or 6th grade, I won't be able to graduate in the future. Who told you that you can't graduate if you pass the 4th or 6th grade? Poplar Fruit smiled. Isn't that right? But it will also affect your postgraduate studies. Fong Beibei said. That's true. Poplar Fruit nodded and said, in fact, most people in Higashiyama University can pass the 6th grade before they graduate, so you don't have to worry. You don't know how bad my English is. Fong Beibei said unhappily. Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes and said, how about I tutor you in English? Fong Beibei was stunned and said, no, you don't have to. You're quite far from here, and it's not good to always trouble you. It's no trouble. You've already helped me look after Kiki, and if I tutor you, Kiki can often play with you. How good is that? She usually plays alone, so she's so lonely. Poplar Fruit said. I don't have to live here. When I'm a postgraduate student, I have to find a house near the school to go to school, so it's convenient. Poplar Fruit said. Then it's settled. After I take the postgraduate entrance exam, I'll tutor you. I guarantee that you'll pass the 4th or 6th grade without any worries, haha. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 151. Poplar Fruit said that he wanted to tutor Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei didn't agree, but she didn't refuse either. Poplar Fruit didn't pursue it. Although he had the intention, he could only treat it as a joke. After all, the two of them weren't that close. After dinner, Fong Beibei helped Poplar Fruit change Kiki's diaper, while Poplar Fruit washed the dishes in the kitchen. Kiki wasn't so stable in Fong Beibei's hands. She kept moving around. She always thought that Fong Beibei was playing games with her. The laughter didn't stop until Poplar Fruit wiped his hands clean, and Fong Beibei finished changing the diaper. Beibei. There. Kiki suddenly shouted in Fong Beibei's arms. Fong Beibei turned to look at Poplar Fruit in confusion. Poplar Fruit smiled and explained to her. Kiki wants you to take her to her toys. She wants to play with you. Poplar Fruit pointed in the direction that Kiki pointed. But Poplar Fruit picked up his phone to look at the time and said, it's getting late. I should send you back. Kiki, let's play next time. Kiki didn't understand what her father was saying. She saw that the two of them ignored her and showed signs of preparing to go out. She became anxious and cried, ahem. Although there were no tears, the way she jumped in Fong Beibei's arms was torturous. Fong Beibei hesitated and said, let's play for a while more. She carried Kiki back to Kiki's amusement park. As soon as Kiki was put down, she immediately crawled to her pile of toys. She looked left and right, picked one up and put it down, picked one up and put it down again. It didn't seem like she wanted to continue playing. Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei were a little confused. They squatted by the side and watched. After squatting for a while, Poplar Fruit began to be distracted. Fong Beibei's hair wasn't very long, but when it was spread out, it looked dark and beautiful. It also exuded a faint fragrance. It definitely didn't smell like rouge perfume. Fong Beibei never put on makeup. Poplar Fruit could tell. It also didn't smell like shampoo, because it wasn't outstanding, but it was faintly seductive. Poplar Fruit was a little distracted. He looked at Fong Beibei's beautiful ears from the corner of his eye, but he didn't dare to look more. He still remembered the experience of peeping at Fong Beibei at the stray dog rescue station a few days ago. At this time, Kiki finally found the one she was looking for from her pile of toys. A Barbie doll in a green dress. After finding the Barbie doll, Kiki turned around and stuffed it into Fong Beibei's hands. Then she sat there and laughed. Fong Beibei was a little surprised. She asked, Kiki, did you give this to me? Poplar Fruit, who had just recovered, was even more surprised. He knew that this Barbie doll was Kiki's most precious toy. Poplar Fruit still remembered that time when he went to the mall to buy clothes with Kiki. She took a fancy to this Barbie doll in a green dress at first glance, and then held it tightly and refused to let go. After they came back, Kiki could be said to have hugged it to eat, sleep, and wouldn't let her father touch it. So far, the situation had eased a little, but this Barbie doll was still Kiki's favorite toy, no other toy. She seems to want to give it to you. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said a little uncertainly, but this toy is her favorite, so I'm not sure. Maybe she wants you to play with her. Kiki, let's play. Fong Beibei happily sat down, handed the Barbie doll and said, "Woo-woo." Kiki shook her head and pushed Fong Bei's hand back. "Bebe." She tilted her head and thought for a while. She didn't know how to express herself, so she pointed at Fong Bei and anxiously called out, "Maybe she wants to give it to you," Poplar Fruit said with some jealousy. It was another first. Kiki's first time giving something she liked to someone else, and it was actually not to her father who loved her the most. Why did all the good things go to Fong Bei? "Kiki, you're so nice." Fong Bei was very touched as she hugged Kiki in front of her and kissed her little face. "Bebe, Jie likes it very much, thank you." Poplar Fruit, who was squatting at the side, clearly saw Fong Bei's eyes filled with tears. Suddenly, that bit of conflict and unhappiness disappeared. Fong Bei had to go back to school in the end. After all, she was still a student. Poplar Fruit handed over a small blanket and let Fong Bei wrap Kiki up, then carried her over. After Fong Bei put on her windbreaker, she carried Kiki over, somewhat reluctant to let go. Along the way, the night was as dark as ink, and the cold wind was bleak. Fong Bei carried Kiki and walked in front with a smile, while Poplar Fruit followed behind with a smile, silently guarding. Looking at their happy faces, Poplar Fruit sighed, and also had some nostalgia. Although he didn't understand it clearly, he still faintly wanted to continue walking on this road without an end. There was no end to the road, only a turn. After a turn, they were out of the community. Poplar Fruit naturally wouldn't let Fong Bei take the bus back. It was freezing cold, and after getting off the bus, they still had to walk a long way. He didn't care about Fong Bei's objection, and stopped a taxi for her. After opening the door, Poplar Fruit estimated the price and gave the driver 100 yuan as the fare. However, money wasn't something that he was conflicted about. What he was conflicted about was saying goodbye at this time. Fong Bei hugged Kiki tightly, kissed her cold little face and said, "Kiki Bebe, Jie is going back. Next time, Bebe Jie will come and play with Kiki, okay?" Kiki didn't understand at all, but she faintly felt that something was wrong. She grabbed Fong Bei's collar and hung on her body, unwilling to let go. Poplar Fruit scratched his head. If this went on, Fong Bei wouldn't be able to go back tonight. He steeled his heart and carried Kiki back. He said to Fong Bei, "Hurry up and go back first, or the dormitory will be closed. Call me." Fong Bei nodded. She looked at Kiki and then looked at Poplar Fruit. She made a call gesture and closed the door. The taxi drove away and disappeared from Poplar Fruit and Kiki's eyes. Kiki was stunned for a long time before she realized that Fong Bei had left. When Poplar Fruit carried her home, Kiki, who felt more and more upset, finally burst into tears. Fong Bei and Poplar Fruit didn't understand Kiki's thoughts. In Kiki's little heart, she liked Fong Bei very much, because she was usually alone, and her father rarely played with her. Then she wanted to give her favorite toy to Fong Bei, and Fong Bei would always play with her. But now she gave her most precious thing, but Fong Bei still left. She came back to her senses and felt heartbroken. Even if her father was still by her side, she felt wronged and could only cry to vent. Kiki was very simple, but she also had her own emotions. Often, when her emotions exploded, no one could persuade her. Not even her father. Afraid that Kiki's face would be frozen by the wind because of her tears, Poplar Fruit hurriedly carried her home. Fortunately, there was no one on the way. Otherwise, they would think that he had stolen someone's child. When they got home, Poplar Fruit tried everything, but there was no way to comfort Kiki. She cried so loudly that Poplar Fruit felt that it was deafening. If it weren't for the sound insulation of the house, the neighbors would have come over to complain. How long had it been since Kiki cried like this? Poplar Fruit couldn't tell. In the past, as long as her father coaxed her, Kiki would laugh through her tears. But this time, no matter what Poplar Fruit said, it was useless. Fong Bei didn't take Kiki's Barbie doll with her. She knew that children were playful by nature and had bad memories. If she wanted to share her favorite thing with her now, she might forget it the next day. When that time came, she would look for the Barbie doll everywhere to play with. Wouldn't that bring trouble to Poplar Fruit? Poplar Fruit found the Barbie doll and brought it in front of Kiki. He wanted to use the Barbie doll to comfort her. In the end, Kiki stared at it for a while with her hazy eyes from crying. Suddenly, she threw it away and cried even harder. This time, Poplar Fruit was at his wit's end. Seeing his daughter cry so heart-wrenchingly, he was also very anxious. He wasn't in the mood to take a shower. He just hugged her and coaxed her. In the end, Kiki's voice was hoarse from crying. She cried until she was exhausted, but she didn't stop. Poplar Fruit was too anxious to see how long it lasted. However, Fong Beibei's call came in. "Uncle, I'm back at the dormitory." Fong Beibei was outside on the balcony as she called Poplar Fruit with a smile. "I still have to thank you for calling a taxi. It sent me directly downstairs." "It's okay. It's good that you're back safely." Poplar Fruit wasn't in the mood to respond to Fong Beibei. He looked at Kiki, who was still crying with heartache. Why do I hear crying?" Fong Beibei asked in confusion. Yes, Kiki was crying very hard. Poplar Fruit reluctantly pulled up the corner of his mouth and said, "She cried when you went back. She cried until now." "Aya, why did Kiki cry for so long?" Fong Beibei asked anxiously. "I guess she saw you go back and couldn't bear to cry." Poplar Fruit sighed. "Let me talk to Kiki," Fong Beibei said. "Put it on speaker." Poplar Fruit took the phone from his ear, pressed the speaker icon and said, "Okay, you say it." Fong Beibei's voice soon came from the speaker. "Kiki, I'm Sister Beibei. Why are you crying again? You're not obedient when you cry." Kiki cried and cried. When she heard Fong Beibei's voice, her crying stopped abruptly. Only a little sobbing sound was left. She turned her head and looked at the source of the sound. It was the phone that her father often held. "That's right, not crying like this is a good child." Fong Beibei laughed and said, "Kiki, call Beibei to Sister Beibei." Kiki didn't understand, but this time she was sure that it was Fong Beibei's voice. She excitedly shouted, "Beibei." And Kiki is so obedient." Fong Beibei laughed happily. "Yeah." Kiki looked at the phone and happily shouted. Although there were still sparkling tears on her eyelashes, the heavy smile made her beautiful big eyes curved into crescent moons. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 152. Poplar Fruit smiled as he watched Kiki holding the phone and babbling to Fong Beibei nonstop. Kiki didn't understand what Fong Beibei was saying, and Fong Beibei didn't understand what Kiki meant, but the two of them chatted happily. It wasn't until Kiki was tired and slowly fell asleep listening to Fong Beibei's nursery rhymes on the phone that Poplar Fruit hung up the phone with Fong Beibei. Kiki stopped crying, and Poplar Fruit finally let out a sigh of relief. He wiped her tears and carried her back to the crib to sleep. Looking at the smile on Kiki's face, Poplar Fruit felt that Kiki must have dreamed of Fong Beibei. However, in Kiki's dream, was her father still with her? He didn't know. Of course, Poplar Fruit thought so. When he woke up the next day, Poplar Fruit was still looking after Kiki anxiously, worried that she would cry if she didn't see Fong Beibei. However, it was obvious that Poplar Fruit's worry was unnecessary. How could a child's brain remember so many things? After drinking the milk, Chi-Chi began to play happily in her amusement park again. This matter was considered over. However, there was still a side effect. This was something that Poplar Fruit discovered later. Kiki began to be interested in his phone. If the phone fell into Kiki's hands, she would look at it and press randomly, as if trying to find Fong Beibei. Even if Kiki saw it when he was on the phone, it would be terrible. She would immediately drop the toy in her hand, crawl to her father's side, and hug her father's ankle like a koala bear. Then, she would raise her head and look at her father with eager eyes. "Beibei." Sometimes, she would simply stretch out her hand and call out, "It's not Beibei." Poplar Fruit covered the microphone and said to Kiki, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. However, Kiki only understood the two words Beibei. She became more and more excited. She tugged at her father's trousers and kept shouting, "Beibei." Poplar Fruit was so annoyed that he had to call Fong Beibei and let them have a good chat. Later, Poplar Fruit began to make phone calls while hiding from Kiki. Only then did things calm down. Winter was not a good time to go out. Other than working hard at home as a translator and earning more money, Poplar Fruit also began to study various kung fu manuals online. Poplar Fruit felt that his martial arts training was not completely useless after he had a real fight with someone at the bank. What was even more profound was that the internal Tai Chi that he practiced was so awesome. His whole body was like a loach. None of the opponent's punches and kicks landed on him. On the other hand, he relied on his internal strength to burst out his strength. Not only did he beat the opponent to the point where they couldn't fight back, but he could also smash the tiles on the floor of the bank lobby. However, he had been practicing Tai Chi for a long time. Many of the moves were memorized in his heart. He could even use them as a conditioned reflex. If he continued to practice, it would only be like this. After witnessing the ferocity of Muay Thai, Poplar Fruit's horizons were broadened a lot. Although Muay Thai was not as good as the internal Tai Chi that he practiced, its moves were not without merit. For example, Tai Chi focused on borrowing strength to fight strength. It pursued the weak to defeat the strong. However, this was based on the situation where the opponent was stronger than him. In fact, Poplar Fruit's strength was not weak at all. Borrowing the strength of others to fight back sometimes made him feel that his strength was useless. Muay Thai was different. Muay Thai pursued extreme speed and strength. Punches, kicks, knees, and elbows were very smooth. It was able to fully display the strength of the human body. The attack power and lethality were very good. This was exactly what Tai Chi did not have. Of course, it did not mean that Poplar Fruit had to practice Muay Thai just because Muay Thai was good. Muay Thai was a type of martial arts. It required one to improve through mutual attacks. It required one to train one's muscles and bones. This actually consumed a lot of one's vitality and vitality. Poplar Fruit would not practice Muay Thai. He was only interested in the moves of Muay Thai. For example, the stab kick, will kick, chain kick, and so on that he saw in the bank could be used as a reference for Poplar Fruit's own martial arts. Muay Thai was only a small direction. In fact, Poplar Fruit wanted to understand the various martial art styles of China over the past 5,000 years. Chinese martial arts had a long history. In the words of the government, it was a precious cultural heritage accumulated and enriched by the working people of China over a long period of time. In fact, it was a variety of martial arts techniques that were slowly accumulated and formed in the long struggle against foreign enemies, against the government, and against thieves. If one were to talk about how many styles there were in Chinese martial arts, it was really uncountable. Tai Chi was also a small pebble in the long river of history. It was just that it withstood the elimination of time, and was carried forward in the modern era, becoming widely known. Other than Shaolin, Wudang, Amei, Southern Fist and other famous styles, there were also various small sects or martial arts passed down in families. Thanks to the popularity of various martial arts novels in the 20th century, more and more people paid attention to martial arts. However, the martial arts that they understood, or the martial arts that they saw on TV or silver screen, were not moves that were seriously used to kill enemies. Think about it. By the time you used these fancy moves, the enemy would have already beaten you to a pulp. What was the use of looking good? Poplar Fruit searched the internet for a long time before he found a few decent martial arts manuals among all kinds of flowery racks. Xingyi Quan, Wing Chun, and Drunken Quan, which was a combination of performance and actual combat. These martial arts were all famous, and their martial arts halls were not uncommon in big cities. It was not unusual for some of the moves to be spread on the internet. Poplar Fruit first began to study Xingyi Quan, which was as famous as Tai Chi. Xingyi Quan focused on short fights and straight attacks, which was the opposite of Tai Chi. However, Poplar Fruit was still very interested in it. Perhaps it could make up for the shortcomings of Tai Chi in close combat. Xingyi Quan used the 5 elements boxing, hack, collapse, drill, cannon, cross, and the 12 forms boxing, dragon, tiger, monkey, horse, chicken, hawk, swallow, snake, bird, eagle, bear, as the basic fist techniques. These were all teaching videos that could be found on the internet. It was not difficult to learn the moves of Xingyi Quan, but Xingyi Quan only had the shape and not the intent of the fist. The intent of the heart, the direction of the intent is the fist. Without the intent, the fist would lose its direction and power. When Yanghua learned Xingyi martial arts, she encountered a problem in this area. The martial arts manual said, Hack fist has the intent of chopping things like an axe, Collapse fist has the intent of shooting things like an arrow, Tiger form has the courage of a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey, Snake form has the intent of flying on grass. However, no matter how much Poplar Fruit practiced, he could not find the feeling. In fact, Poplar Fruit could be considered to be a fast learner. Ever since he started learning Xingyi Quan, it had only been a few days, but he had already learned the moves. However, if he wanted to go further, he would have to rely on his own comprehension, or he would need the guidance of a master of Xingyi Quan. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 153. It was time to separate. Poplar Fruit looked at his watch. The exam would start in half an hour. He said goodbye to Fong Beibei and the others, but he looked back every 10 steps. He looked at Kiki and Fong Beibei's arms with some worry and reluctance until he walked out of sight. Fong Beibei, under the cover of her roommates, a few of them surrounded her, avoided the sharp eyes of the dormitory manager, and slipped upstairs. Walking up the stairs, Fong Beibei complained as she walked. How can you be like this? Isn't it just a small favor? It's nothing. Why are you making him spend so much money? How is it a small favor? He went to the exam, and you helped him take care of his child. This is a big favor. Lu Ruhua said. And we are actually helping you test him. That's right, to see if he is sincere to you. Lu Lei then added. If he is sincere, then he won't be reluctant to part with this small amount of money. Fong Beibei didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, What are you thinking? I have nothing to do with him. We have only met a few times. We are just friends. I can testify that you have known Poplar Fruit for a long time. The little spy, Lin Xingshan, raised her hand and laughed. Lu Ruhua said, I think he is quite interested in you. It is obvious that the way he looks at you is different from how he looks at us. I also think that you two are quite compatible when you stand together. Lu Lei laughed and said, One is a handsome guy, and the other is a beautiful girl. Don't talk nonsense. If others hear it, you can't even be friends with him. Fong Beibei frowned and said. At this time Wu Yani, who had been silent, said faintly, Even if he is a handsome guy, he has a child. Do you still want to push Beibei into the fire pit? Wu Yani usually didn't talk much, but she often hit the nail on the head. The lively atmosphere suddenly cooled down. Everyone was silent. It was Fong Beibei who broke the silence. She smiled and said, Hey you guys, why are you worrying so much? There's really nothing between me and him. Don't overcomplicate everything. Walking into the dormitory, Lu Ruhua sighed and said, Why are all the good grass being eaten by other cows these days? That's because you're not a cow yet. Lu Lei giggled and ran up to Lu Ruhua. She grabbed the small mounds in front of Lu Ruhua's chest and said with a lewd smile. On the other hand, when Poplar Fruit arrived at the examination hall, most of the candidates had already entered. He took out his ID and admission ticket for the invigilator to verify before finding his seat. This was an old school building. The desks were very old and creaked when he sat down. Poplar Fruit took out a pen and placed it on the table. He looked around the examination room. The examinees all had grave expressions on their faces. Although the competition for the postgraduate examination was not as fierce as the college entrance examination, it was not easy either. Not everyone was like Poplar Fruit. They had been revising day and night for at least a year just for these 2 days. If they failed, they could only take the exam next year or not take the exam at all. The price of failure was too high for them. They could not relax at all. Preparing for the exam, Poplar Fruit turned off his phone and handed it to the podium. An invigilator kept it in an envelope and asked Poplar Fruit to write his name. After handing over the phone, Yanghua suddenly felt that her heart was empty, unable to reach the ground. Without his phone, it meant that he would not be able to receive any news about Kiki in these few hours. Poplar Fruit began to worry. He was worried that Kiki would cry in these few hours. If she cried, her voice would definitely be hoarse after 3 hours. He was worried that Kiki would scratch herself in the female dormitory. The female dormitory had a lot of small things and appliances, and Kiki was so active. He was worried that Fong Beibei would forget his instructions and not feed Kiki on time. It was 3 hours. What if Kiki was hungry? Why were the exam papers not given out yet? Poplar Fruit was anxious. He sat on the chair and twisted around, looking left and right. He was restless. His behavior quickly attracted the attention of the invigilators. They had pretended to walk past Poplar Fruit a few times and carefully observed Poplar Fruit's drawers and movements. Of course, they did not find any evidence of cheating. However, they still listed Poplar Fruit as a key target. Poplar Fruit was very young. He was only 23 or 24 years old. However, after a year of experience in society and having a daughter, his temperament was much more mature. Compared to other examinees of the same age, he looked more suspicious of cheating. After receiving the exam papers, Poplar Fruit's heart suddenly calmed down. He thought it through. Kiki had always been by his side, but that was not a problem. She needed to learn to face the situation when her father was not around. Moreover, since he had chosen to take the exam, he should not let his imagination run wild. He should focus on doing the questions and finish the exam early. It was more effective than sitting here and worrying. The first test in the morning was comprehensive English. The difficulty of the questions was similar to Poplar Fruit's CET 8 English major exam. However, for the current Poplar Fruit, it was really too easy. The complicated reading questions that others might find difficult, or even pull their hair out, were easily solved by Poplar Fruit, as if they were eating a normal meal. He could basically see the answers to the choice, close, and reading comprehension questions at a glance. As for the translation and writing questions, Poplar Fruit only needed to ponder for a moment before he continued to write vigorously. During the whole process, Poplar Fruit's pen did not stop at all. It looked as if he knew the answers. The invigilator stood beside Poplar Fruit. He knew very well that Poplar Fruit could not copy the answers, but Poplar Fruit's performance in answering the questions really shocked him. The invigilator on the podium also noticed. He sighed in his heart and thought silently. Is he just going to randomly choose the questions? Why give up treatment? Poplar Fruit finished the exam papers that others might not be able to finish in 3 hours. Yongwa didn't even need to flip through the paper to check it again. He just closed his eyes and went through the answers in his memory. After correcting 2 mistakes, he began to put the pen cap back on and started to pack up. Under the astonished gazes of the audience, Poplar Fruit walked to the podium and handed in his paper. He then smiled at the invigilator and walked out with his phone. Poplar Fruit walked out of the examination hall and also received a lot of attention. The parents who were standing under the trees to avoid the cold wind pointed at Poplar Fruit and whispered, "Here comes another one." Yeah, even if you don't do well, don't give up halfway. The parents whispered bitterly. Before Poplar Fruit, someone ran out crying and shouting. It looked like he could not continue and had a mental breakdown. The parents felt that Poplar Fruit was in the same situation as the other examinee, just a little calmer. Poplar Fruit did not notice and did not care about other people's gazes. He picked up his phone and called Fong Beibei, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.